Hey, this is Brian with Concerts That Made Us podcast, and you're listening to Pods Like Us, a great show about other great shows.
Hello.
Hello, everybody. Sorry about the lateness.
Hey, Marv.
Hey, Tom. I'm just going to... Oh, Tom's doing video. There we go. Can see you as well.
Hi.
Hey. Hi.
Wait.
Hi.
I'm going to pass you these headphones for now, and then we'll sort out
Awesome.
the...
Awesome.
Have you got the splitter as well?
No, I don't know where that is.
Okay, let's get that. Oh. Where's that done?
I still think it looks like Paul Hogan.
Yes. Yes.
Yours is a dead ringer.
Yeah. You can hear you saying that, you know, Tom can.
He is. He's dead ringer. You should look him up.
They hear everything.
He hears everything.
Have you seen the Great British Bake Off?
What's that?
Great British Bake Off.
Mm.
It's
Great
a
British
baking
Bagel?
competition.
Oh,
Bake
baking.
Off.
Oh,
I love
Excellent.
that show.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah.
I can't split it anyway. I will leave Louise to chat while I go and find something so that we can have both headphones. Okay?
okay.
Like I said, I should never
Hello.
put
How are
shows
you?
so closely.
Great. Yourself?
Okay, thank you.
Hmm.
Not too bad.
Good.
I'm Amanda. I don't think I know everybody. So hi.
Hi.
I'm Tom.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Martin's other, as he would say, better half.
Probably true.
It was plugged into the tablet.
You guys are recording these back to back. That's impressive.
Yes, but next time I won't record them quite so closely.
You've got your notes.
You need a little bit of a break in between.
I can see the notes anyway somewhere else if need be. Here we go.
2 in a row. That's just bollocks. I love that word.
And here we go. You should be able to hear them now.
Yeah.
Yes, excellent.
Brilliant. Where
Weren't
am
there
I?
a couple other lads joining us?
I think so. Yes. So
Well, they're really fashionably late.
Well, they were where they were where we were. So
Oh, well, maybe they did
Yes.
what I did and went to refill their wine.
yes.
It's after 5. I can drink now.
meetings.
It's always 1 o'clock somewhere.
Just in case they.
Yes.
I'll be back in 1 second.
Okay.
Or cake o'clock, as I like to say.
I'm a day drinker. It doesn't matter what time it is.
just put the link again in the Instagram.
Ooh, it's a bad angle.
Sat next to each other. If I move it over there, they can see both of us better.
Yeah, that's cute.
Where are you from then?
Texas.
Cool.
Yeah, that's all right.
The biggest
I'm actually
state in the
from
Union.
Oklahoma, but I live in Texas.
The biggest
pretty
state
close.
in the Union.
Is it?
Yeah, it's a crapshoot around here too. So, not my favorite place to be, but it's all right. Living here is great if you have a penis. If not, not so much.
Okay. That might go in the post show.
Do you do anything?
They don't like the women here to have a lot of freedom. Just saying. And it's always hot.
Where are you?
Texas.
I'm in there.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm in Arizona, so it's
Yeah.
always hotter.
Yeah. Oh, but it's dry heat. We have humid heat.
That's right. 10
right.
times better.
Humid's worse.
I think anything past 95 degrees is just heat. I don't care whether it's humid or not. It's just
We
hot.
say the same thing here. Yeah, I mean, once it's past 110, you're fucked, I guess. Pardon the language.
Okay. Look at Tom's cap.
Oh, yes.
Kiss.
I have a
Yep.
Kiss shirt. I love it.
Nice. Yep. Went to
Love
my
it.
last Kiss show 2 weeks ago.
Go on,
Won't go
I
to
missed
another.
the shirt. What's he wearing? What shirt? have you
Oh, I'm
got
not
on?
wearing it right
Oh,
now. I'm sorry.
Oh, right. Okay.
I was just saying I have a Kiss shirt. I love it.
Yeah.
Cool.
I've never seen them. I always wanted to.
Yeah, well, this is it. I mean, like one more year and that's it.
I don't know. They always say that. I went to George Strait's final concert at like the biggest arena in the country, and now
Right.
he's still doing tours. I'm like,
Right.
why'd I pay so much money for that?
Yeah. But you know what? After listening to Paul Stanley sing, I really hope for his sake that it's the last.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Really?
He's lip
Not
syncing
great.
most. Yeah, he's lip syncing most of the songs now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They get the
Hello,
audience to
Matthew.
sing, don't they?
Hey Marv, how you doing? Hi
All right.
Hi,
everyone.
Matthew.
Hey, hello.
All these people. There's somebody else on here. We've got an arrow. Blimey. So many people. Not
Popular
that-
today.
he's not joined yet. He's joining.
He's trying.
He's trying.
You can do it.
You can do it. Come
All
on,
night
Nikki. You can
long.
do it.
Oh, it looks like his audio's there.
His audio's
Yeah,
there.
well, that's my video not up here.
Hey,
There we go.
Oh.
Oh, it's a kitty
Hello.
cat.
It is.
My kitty cat's over here, not on screen.
He just came downstairs with me. I figured I'd grab him.
Very good.
She was all over my keyboard a minute ago, so I'm glad we weren't doing anything.
Our beagle does that to my wife every morning. She gets the laptop open and the beagle wants to climb all over.
Nice.
Yeah.
Love beagles.
Yeah. Wow. So do we.
So, not Banff. What's your name, sir? Because we haven't met before, really, have we?
I'm with the Stu World Order on Twitter. I'm at SWO Productions. This is just if it says not Banff, that's just like my old screen name I've had since like 1999. I used it in a comic book form a long time ago, and I still use it pretty much everywhere.
But what's your actual name?
Oh, Robert Stewart.
Cool. Like,
Hello,
are we
Robert.
supposed to? What are we supposed to call you?
Hello.
There we go.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
Awesome.
Matthew does From the Swamp to the Swamp and the Win Place show.
So politics and horse racing. That's kind of my
Oh,
MO.
it's a horse racing chat.
I like it.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh, we
It is.
watched the clip, didn't we, of the horse savaging the other horse?
Oh yeah, yeah.
We did.
Frenzy
It's
fire,
in slow
savaging
motion,
Yalpin.
Yes.
Yeah, That was one of the
Absolutely.
more wild things I've ever seen. So yeah,
Definitely.
Is it American politics, international politics, both?
a little bit of both, mostly
State politics?
American, mostly American, but I do stories at the state level, national level, and then I typically do a few stories. Actually, just this last week, I did a story about some of the shortages going on over in the UK, and then the German elections actually as well. So it's kind of go all over. Try to be pretty down the middle. I was a professor for 10 years, and so I try to be pretty down the middle with my politics. Don't try to push people one way or the other.
Love it.
So,
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was going to say, if you want to talk about Texas, call me, but don't. I'm not down the middle. I'm not in the middle.
Okay. And Amanda, what show do you do again?
The SIP list.
Oh, yes, the SIP list. Yes.
Is that to do with drinking?
It is, I think.
Drinking.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Drinking and top 5 lists. So we'll talk about all kinds of stuff.
And she says Halloween Curse of Michael Myers is the worst Halloween movie. It made me a little bit sad. It's a bad one, though.
You really don't think it's worse than Resurrection? We may have to talk.
You know what's funny is the show I'm doing at 7:30 after this is we're doing Halloween Resurrection on Pinto Comics, and I had to watch that again. I was like, nope, this is definitely the worst.
Yeah.
So are you doing a month of Halloween then, Rob?
Oh no, just the guy over at Pinto Comics, John, like he's the first podcast friend I made like several years ago whenever I started all this, and he and I have gotten to be actually really good friends. And 2 or 3 days ago, he lost his hard drive, so he lost like all the saved, backed up episodes that he had. So I'm doing an episode with him tonight for the month of October Halloween special that it'll come out this week because now he's not ahead anymore.
It'll be limited on editing time then.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
What do you think to Pet Cemetery?
Oh, I never saw the remake, and it's been a long time. Good. It's been a long time since I've seen the original.
I think Louise is on about the original.
Yeah.
The remake is not good. The book's amazing.
Oh, book's great.
I'm a huge Stephen King fan too, so
if you've got plenty of time to read it, 'cause it's very big, chunky book.
Pet Cemetery?
Yes. Is it?
Oh my God. Have you seen The Stand? Or
I was going to say,
it's Stand
or
or
11/22/63?
Duma Key.
Yeah, Pet Cemetery is like, meh.
All right, okay. Got it mixed up. In fact, of course, yeah.
That's light reading.
Even Christine's thicker than Pet Cemetery. And
it is. Yeah.
Well, not by much, but yeah.
Not by much, but yeah. Rose Madder is huge. But those are some big books. Those are 1,000-pagers.
Yeah.
Well, I read Christine when I was 12 years old.
Under the Dome.
Nice. Yeah.
It was the rock and roll pulled me in.
Oh, to Christine or because of the music?
Because in Christine, all the chapters begin with a quote from or lyrics from songs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's very clever.
Yes, very. Yeah.
Sorry. You got tangled knots.
I thought I'd killed the conversation.
Well, I did a Halloween one with my friend on his show, and then we're doing a top 5 this weekend. Top 5 Halloween moments I'm doing, and he's doing Nightmare on Elm Street. So if you want a horror fix, that's what will be.
Nice.
I will not be including anything from Halloween 6.
But it has Paul Rudd.
It does have Paul Rudd.
Everybody loves the Rudd. Yes.
I mean, he's a gem.
Yeah.
Age is better than anyone.
Hate that guy. Yeah.
You might have a point. Hollywood magic, that's why.
Yeah.
Oh, dear me.
So, hey, this is Tim from Bad Counsel. You want some good counsel? Keep listening to the smooth, dulcet tones of Marv on Pods Like Us.
So, as I said in another show, actually, Stephen King is in mine and Louise's history because we met or the first time we talked, Louise was reading The Dead Zone.
Oh, okay.
Very nice.
It's a good one.
That got me to talking to Louise because I asked her about
I
it.
did it on purpose.
I just watched that film not too long ago. The Christopher Walken version I just watched not too long ago. Just came out on Blu-ray, so picked it up.
Very good.
Oh, nice.
I like that film a lot.
Yeah, it's actually pretty good. There's been some good adaptations, and there's been some total shit adaptations. It's like,
don't get me started on the It miniseries, please.
Yeah.
Maximum Overdrive.
I love Maximum Overdrive. Oh my god.
It's brilliant,
All I know
it's brilliant, but it's good cheese.
Yeah.
All I know is the Dark Tower movie infuriated my wife. Just infuriated. It was so funny seeing her be the angry geek about something.
If you can get through the Dark Tower books, I will send you a medal because, oh my god.
I know
awful.
She's read them. I know she loves the Dark Tower books.
Yeah.
I think we've already gone into this already. So you know what? We'll go from here. So, yeah, because we'll carry on with the Stephen King thing, because I think sometimes there's versions of his films that are really good, like The Shining, but Stephen King himself absolutely hates that film.
Yeah.
Have you read the book?
I've heard that.
Right.
No, I haven't actually read that book. No, I know it's
so.
different.
If you've read the book, the Kubrick movie is blasphemy. It's if you think of it not as part as the book, it's a great movie. It is just the worst adaptation of a book. Like, it's awful if you compare it to the book. I mean,
right. You don't want to know the book if going into seeing the film adaptation or Kubrick's adaptation. You don't.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, probably you don't want to go into a lot of his movies. If you haven't read them, it's probably best if you want to see those movies.
Yeah, because I don't think he liked The Dead Zone, did he? Either. I don't think.
I don't
The
know
film.
about that one.
I don't know.
Probably not. He did like the TV miniseries of The Shining with Steven Weber.
Right. I think he was more involved with that one, though, wasn't he?
He was, yeah.
Yeah.
The Shining reading, I read the book in college, but I grew up on the movie, and reading the book just ruined that movie for me.
Mm-hmm.
It was like I found out my favorite love song was written about a sandwich. It was just like the worst thing ever. But it's a good movie, but just not a great adaptation.
Yep, I like
Dr. Sleep was amazing. Sorry.
Yes, I was
the
going
book
to say
or the movie.
I thought both. I thought they did a really good job.
I think the film they did a good job of. It was a difficult thing to do because, in a way, they were trying to link it to the book by Stephen King, but at the same time, they had to link it. They were told to link it to the Kubrick film as well, and they had to find a sort of middle ground where they could actually link the two together, but also keep Stephen King happy at the same time, because he wasn't happy that they were trying to link it to the original Shining film, and I thought they did a really good job of actually negotiating that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Impossible task, but they pulled it off.
Yeah. Going into the superhero world, it's like the films that are based on Alan Moore's writings, like The Watchmen. He absolutely hates things that are based on his writings.
Yeah. He hated V for Vendetta. He hated The Watchmen. Although Alan Moore ends up hating most of the stuff that he writes.
Yes.
Too. You ask Alan Moore about like things that he's written, and he ends up hating it. So,
well, Stephen King wrote some of his best work drunk or high. So
yeah, I was going to say, drunk at least.
He wrote so much of his best work on coke. So what are you going to do?
Well, with how long those books are, obviously he had to have been on coke.
Absolutely,
that is true.
Especially those 80 books. Was it books from the 80s?
Yeah. Misery, oh my god, it's like a good movie adaptation, but the book is so much worse. Like there's parts of it that I like cringe at how bad Annie is, like how evil she is.
Right.
So
yeah. What I find interesting about King is some of my favorite some of my favorite pieces of his work are actually have nothing to do with horror. I mean, The Shawshank Redemption is one of my favorite films.
And The Green Mile.
You know, it's just a novella basically. And even The Green Mile, you know, is, you know, that it's a little Hollywood cheesy, but it's, you know, it's interesting how those films have one type of legacy. And then the horror films that he's done, or the books that he's done that have been adapted into film, have a very different type of legacy. So that always is very interesting to me.
Yeah. We just did top 5 Stephen King adaptations on my show, maybe like 3 or 4 weeks ago. And definitely like Shawshank and Green Mile and Stand By Me were all like part of that conversation, because people don't think about that. Because especially Shawshank, there's not even like a supernatural element, whereas like Green Mile at least has kind of the supernatural.
So you're right. Good point.
You know.
Yeah.
So people forget about it because it's not horror or whatever.
Right.
He gets beaten very badly though in Shawshank.
Yeah, it's a pretty. I mean, there's definitely some brutal, you know, scenes in terms of what it's like to be in prison, particularly at that time in American history.
And that's suicide as well. In Brooks,
very sad.
Brooks. To be in prison for something you know you didn't do, like that desperation is just. Tim Robbins was outstanding.
They were all outstanding.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, the character of Brooks, essentially, he's almost got a version of Stockholm syndrome in a way, where he's been incarcerated for that long that actually is his life. So once he came out of prison, he didn't know anything other than the prison life. So he didn't know what to do, which brought that on.
And to Amanda's point, you know, about being locked in prison for something you didn't do. And Marv, to your point about the Stockholm of Brooks, in some ways, when you frame it that way, it is a horror, right? It is a horror film. I mean, that you're stuck in incarceration for something you didn't do, and you've been brainwashed into institutionalization. I mean, that's the scary, that's rather scary, but the way it's depicted on screen is almost, you know, whimsical in some senses. So
I think it's probably reality too, for some people.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah, I'm sure.
We like Thinner, don't we?
Yes,
That's
you like Thinner, don't you? Yes. Yeah.
Has anybody ever noticed in these 3 of his films, and they all involve an oil tanker crash? Thinner, Cemetery, and Dead Zone. They all involve an oil tanker crash.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, that's
interesting.
Right. Are they all in the book?
About that.
Amanda,
I know Pet Cemetery, but I don't know about. I haven't read the Dead Zone.
No.
Oh, okay.
I haven't read it.
Film.
No, I was just wondering if it was in the book originally, and King had written it in the book, and that's why it ended up in the film. You see.
I don't think Pet Cemetery says it's an oil tanker. I think it just says it's a big semi truck.
Yeah, that's true.
But I'm not 100% sure. So,
he has a lot of road accidents in his books. I think.
Yeah.
Especially in trucks. Oh yeah, Misery. Yeah.
From a Buick 8.
Oh.
Yes.
Has everybody read that one?
I have not. No.
Yeah, I haven't either. I have not read it.
I was on a pretty, because you can see the Beatles picture behind me, or poster behind me. I mean, I had a pretty good system down about a few years ago before I started podcasting, where I would read a Beatle book and then I would read a Stephen King book, and I had a really good system going down, and right up until about Misery, and then that's when I just started doing the podcasting, and then it just took over my whole all my free time for the most part. And then I've got all these other books past Misery that are collecting dust on the shelves, and I really want to get to them, but then another book comes out that I have to read for the podcast. And it's just like, I guess retirement, is now the answer for that, unfortunately. So,
Tom does the Paul McCartney podcast called Two Legs, and he does a solo Beatles podcast called Talk More Talk. By the way,
oh,
nice,
awesome.
Okay.
Did you read the John Lennon book, the James Patterson one? The James Patterson one.
Yeah, I have it over here, but no, I have not.
Same. I bought it when it came out, but I haven't read it yet.
Right.
I'm in the same boat as you with the podcast and the not reading my books. And I've got a Stephen King book next to me that I'm halfway through, and I just can't finish it. Not because it's not good.
Right.
Billy Summers.
Okay. All right.
So it's good. I recommend it.
Yeah, I got caught out with a reading thing because for my other podcast, the George Harrison based podcast, I had to read the book that was brought out recently that was written by Ken Krupa and Womack.
Yeah.
And trying to fit that around the recording of the podcast and doing almost 70 hours a week at work was not easy.
Jesus.
Dear me.
It's not, but you know what? The authors really do appreciate when you're going into an interview with them, when you know the material, you know, they do appreciate that.
Absolutely. And it's a good book as well. I mean, some of the things, you know, like Ed Chen from When They Was Fab was saying, you know, there are some things in the book that we knew already, but it was interesting. I thought that book to look at it from the point of view of the relationship between Eric Clapton and George Harrison.
Right.
I thought that was interesting, and to look back at how their histories and how they were,
how different they were, you know, as people. I mean, Eric Clapton was a blues guy. You know, he stuck his nose up to rock and roll, or what rock and roll was back then. You know, so the fact that he and George Harrison were able to have this friendship for so many years is really, you know, quite amazing. And the way they grew up was totally different as well. So it's really interesting, you know, these you know, entertainers, their lives, and you know, how they're able to make friends with other entertainers that have, you know, equally screwed up lives or whatnot. You know?
That's awesome.
What's up, everybody? This is Chris from the podcast Real Film Reviewed, and you're listening to Marv on Pods Like Us.
So anyway, we might as well go into the show now and make it really, you know, so
I have notes.
Yeah,
fantastic. People have notes. Wow. I've only got the bullet
gnomes
points.
or notes?
Both.
Okay.
Tom has gnomes.
Oh,
he does. There
nice.
You go.
I like it.
Yes. He got it free with the new deluxe box set.
Yeah,
of,
they were free in they were free in the 1K box.
Yes, $1,000 worth right there.
Take care of that, baby.
Oh,
absolutely.
Leave you me.
So anyway,
nobody's allowed in this room to even look at it but me.
Well, you were just kind of manhandling it there, so I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, but if anybody's going to break it, it better be me, you know.
So for people listening, everybody would know that I'm Martin Crawl, known to my friends as Marv, and I've also got at the side of me.
I'm Louise, known as Martin's better half. Some of my friends call me Lou, so
there you go. So yeah, all of us are sort of together because we were all interested, or we were discussing between ourselves in a chat group about the idea of what we see as a classic film. So what do people think the meaning of the phrase classic film is? Because I think it's different according to age, possibly, and you know, because a classic film to me might be 50s, 60s, 70s. And a classic film to somebody like Matthew's brother Nathaniel is a film from the 90s and the 80s.
Oh, if you're lucky, it's a film from the 90s and 80s. A lot of times. Right. It's from the early 2000s.
Sometimes Nathaniel will say an early 2000s film is an oldie, and I'll be like, pardon?
Yeah. No, I think, you know, Marv, it's interesting. That's exactly kind of where I was starting when I was thinking about this, is that, you know, I think of my father introduced me to films that he thought were classics that were from the 40s and 50s.
Yes.
And then as I got kind of my own sense of self, I tend to look back on films that I have a certain connection to with regards to films in the 80s and 90s in a lot of cases, or 70s as well. One of the things, though, that I think transcends those time periods, for me at least, is the word timeless. That there's something timeless about a film that no matter what age it is, no matter what era it is, you pop it in, it's still entertaining, it still catches your attention, and it's aged well for the viewer. So I think, and that's something that from the, you know, honestly, from silent films to, you know, stuff that's really recent, I think that can transcend all of it, for me at least.
Yeah. And the word classic, I think it sometimes people use it and I don't really think they understand when they're using sometimes. I don't think what that word means sometimes. I mean, I think that word gets thrown around inappropriately sometimes, but classic I think is sometimes just an opinion. Really, I mean, you can have a classic film in a genre, like a horror genre, let's say, like, you guys were talking about Halloween earlier. I mean, that first Halloween film could be a classic in that genre, but not necessarily a classic in the, let's say, the whole spectrum of films.
I think it is.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah.
I will fight you on that.
Yeah, I will die on that hill.
And that's where the opinions start taking off.
Amanda and I are coming for you.
Yes, that's fine. And I agree with Matthew. I mean, these are films that stand the test of time, that they're handed down from generation to generation. Absolutely. And these are the films that keep getting reissued by these studios, with new special features. And it's just, I can tell you, I've probably bought Goodfellas and The Clockwork Orange probably 8 times over the last 20 years. That's how many times these films get, reissued, or these classic films, if you will. So yeah, I mean, I think it's just what you like, and yeah, and it's good luck trying to convince other people, but go ahead.
Sorry, do you think covering classic films is a bit of a no-no?
Oh, coloring?
No.
Remaking. Remaking.
Yeah.
In a way, I mean, I can tell you right now, if someone was brave enough to remake The Godfather, I wouldn't go see it. Yeah. There's been remakes out there of maybe like B films that come out here, like Bad Lieutenant, or something like that. Harvey Keitel and then Nick Cage. That character can be remade maybe. But yeah, when you're talking like classic films, like I'm not a fan of Sound of Music, but but nobody better remake that film.
Right. And that's it's interesting you bring that up, because Spielberg is remaking West Side Story.
Right.
Yeah.
For many people,
but that's a Broadway musical, so I think that's different.
It is, but it's still interesting to see how that's gonna. I mean, that's such a legendary film that we'll see. Yeah.
But on the other hand,
I'm just ready to say, when you're a jet flight.
On the other hand, you've got films that are seen by some people as classic, say B movies, such as The Thing from Outer Space, and when that was remade with Kurt Russell, that is a fantastic film. That is one of I think that's one of Kurt Russell's best films.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I think that's the thing with remakes that I always say is, whatever, remake The Godfather. I mean, geez, that would take some cojones to do that. But whatever you remake, no matter how good or bad it is, it doesn't change the original.
No, the original will always be there.
Yeah. So I mean, all remaking something does is create something that other people might enjoy. So if you remake The Godfather, heaven forbid, but if you remake The Godfather, maybe you'll get a bunch of people who really like it, and good for them. Good on them if they like it. But if you or I hate it, we can still watch the original Godfather. Right. It doesn't impact that at all.
True.
And in a way, it's also bringing it the attention to a new generation,
right?
As well, and then they can do the research and go back and like, oh, this is a remake. Maybe I should watch the original, as well.
Sorry.
No, go ahead, Amanda. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say a perfect example of that, which isn't a movie, but is Cobra Kai. Karate Kid is in my top 5 favorite movies of all time. When they did that Jaden Smith movie, I was like, no, it's actually fine. But
and it's kung fu in his film as well.
Listen, we're 80s people. We have pride in our some of these movies that we grew up with, and damn you if you think you're going to get me to go to the theater and watch that remake.
And actually, the Jaden Smith movie is good if you don't compare it to the original. It's a little bit of a different story. They take some of the same elements. It's actually a decent movie, but for me, I'm like, you cannot recreate the Karate Kid. But with Cobra Kai, you're getting the same stuff we loved when we were kids, but you're also introducing a new generation with new kids and getting my kid to watch it when she thinks the Karate Kid is stupid. And now she's like, oh, Cobra Kai is pretty cool. So I think that's a good example of how they can do that, but it doesn't always work out that way.
Yeah. And luckily, they're avoiding Karate Kid 3.
I don't know.
In Cobra Kai, they're pretending that.
No, they're not. In Cobra Kai, they are bringing in the Karate Kid 3 characters.
Harry Silver is back, and there's rumors that Mike
he
Barnes
hinted
is back.
at that at the end. Yeah, absolutely.
You've spoiled it now. Thank you.
No, the trailer shows him.
And let's not be surprised if Hilary Swank shows up in the future season.
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I'm not sure whether it came out or is coming out, but isn't Sarah Paulson doing a Nurse Ratchet show?
Yeah, that was a Netflix show.
It did come out already.
Yeah, it did come out. And it was kind of like a prequel, to that. So,
can we have a computer generated Pat Morita in the Cobra Kai show?
I wish.
It can just be there, and they can just reuse the footage where he says wax on, wax off.
Right. It's like you Miyagi'd me. It's a verb. I know I keep saying, like, I promise I'm not trying to plug my show, but we just did top 5 worst sequels. And next Karate Kid was on my list. I was like, the most unnecessary movie ever. So love you, Hilary Swank. Please, Cobra Kai, don't bring her in.
Any Home Alone film past Home Alone 2.
Agreed.
Yeah. Hey, it's Gil from the Mind Buzz podcast. Today's mind culture and social podcast. And you're listening to Pods Like Us.
I think the whole like classic movie thing, I don't know how old everybody is. I'm guessing some of us are close, and Matthew might be a little younger. I'm 42, so I'm an 80s.
Oh, I'm right with you. I'm 41. So
okay.
Yeah.
Well, kudos to you.
51.
Okay, so
40.
We're okay. I was gonna say you have to say now. We all did. When I was a kid, a classic movie was considered a black and white movie. I've just not considered by everybody, but just kind of like by my family and by me. And then, but my mom watched every single black and white movie there was, and then all the Elvis movies and, everything. So as I've gotten older, I kind of feel like what you guys said, it's just a movie that stands the test of time. I mean, there's arguably lots of different ones that some people like and some people don't, but who doesn't with their family watch The Wizard of Oz at least once a year and their kids watch it? I mean, that movie is timeless. Like it's still played every year on like Thanksgiving or whatever, somewhere, it's something people still watch. So I think it is something that you can involve your family in and have your own, like your nostalgia, but then they can also, it's like bringing a new, like we said, new generation.
It was a family event, Wizard of Oz every year on public TV, when it was on free TV. And my mom before me was, grew up watching it on TV, so absolutely.
Yeah. And Tom, I think that's it goes back to your distinction between perhaps the best films versus what would be classic films. And I think there's sometimes the distinction between those two. And Amanda, when you were mentioning that, I was thinking of the movie A Christmas Story, which I think everybody watches at Christmas time. I mean, everybody loves, it's on everybody's top 5 list. It's, it's not, Francis Ford Coppola is not making that movie. I mean, that's, it doesn't have the sort of directorial flourishes. It's a great movie, but it's a classic movie. I mean, I'll fight anyone who would say otherwise, but it's not The Godfather. It's
my husband hates that movie.
That's very sad to hear.
But that's
I know he has no soul. It's okay. He's dead inside.
He's getting looking for Christmas.
Cold for you.
First time I watched that movie, I cried, especially at the end. And then I'm like, I was, staying at my dad's at the time, and and he was in his bedroom watching something else, and I'm kind of like looking over my shoulder, making sure he's not walking out and seeing me crying over this movie.
I grilled my husband on that. I was like, didn't you ever want something for Christmas so bad that when you got it, it just like, it made you so happy? And he was just like, no. And I was like, fine. Well, you never wanted a Cabbage Patch doll in the 80s, I'll tell you that.
Garbage Pail Kid for you.
I love Garbage Pail Kid.
Oh my.
I used to have those cards. Yeah,
Me
remember
too.
those?
Same here. Same here.
So I think for the classic thing, I agree with the point where it's a word that can be used interchangeably in the genre, in just movies as a whole. And I will say classic as, and this would be my own personal interpretation, anything made before I was born.
Okay.
So anything before 1980 is classic in my head because it existed before I did. But then, yeah, there's the movies that are just proven, like Jurassic Park is a classic movie. Terminator 2 is a classic movie. I mean, I was a teenager whenever those came out, but they're movies that I have watched several times in my life and will watch several more times in my life. So it's like the word fine. Fine can mean like a fine point, or it can mean okay. But I mean, it's the same word either way. So classic for me can mean just old and has held up, or anything that's like, you know, a 5-star, almost 5-star movie, regardless of how old it is.
Yeah, it's a bit like earlier. Tom mentioned a film earlier on, and when he mentioned this film, I thought classic can also be seen as classic genre. So when Tom mentioned earlier Goodfellas, that's a classic. That's a classic mafia film or classic gangster film, much as The Godfather and Casino and films like that. And then classic horror films, like we mentioned earlier on, you'd have the original Halloween. You would have would you say the Friday the 13th, or would you say the second Friday the 13th is the better film?
Oh, I think the second one's better. I wouldn't call either of them classic, and I love those films with all of my heart.
Right. Well, see, and that's good too, because that's you as a film lover. You also have to be able to differentiate that kind of thing. Is you know, you might love it, you yourself, but you know, a million people outside, you know, they're not going to love it, and they're not going to consider it a classic like you might consider it a classic.
Right. I love I think it's a 1993 movie called Hackers with Angelina Jolie and Johnny Lee Miller. I freaking love that movie to a point, because I was cheesy. It's incredibly cheesy. I was 13 years old when it came out. It's good. And I was like just starting to figure out computers. And I just thought this is how like the internet was going to work and everything. I love that. But I also have the cognitive wherewithal to recognize this is not a good movie. This is not a movie that's going to be on anybody's like best of list. And so, but yeah, to me, it's classic, but that's just something I keep inside. And now I've shared with the world, but I mostly just keep inside to myself. So.
Yeah, I legit, I could look on my letterbox right now and say, I can tell you I have Friday the 13th Part 2 and Friday the 13th Part 6 as 4.5-star movies. They're objectively not. But that doesn't change the fact that I will watch at least those two movies 10 more times before I die.
Yeah.
Don't watch Hackers if you want to know how computers work, because none of it is real.
No.
That's not how it works.
Marv, that's why I have to rely on Nathaniel to do everything for the podcast, because I have no idea how computers work. So that's the problem.
There's this little 80s gem called Nothing But Trouble. I don't know if anybody's ever seen it.
Yeah.
It's terrible. It's so awful, but I can't not watch it. I wouldn't call it a classic, but it's like, damn, that's an amazing movie.
Yeah. For me, you know, I grew up with sci-fi. I was in 79. I was 6 when they put Star Wars back in the theaters, and that's the first time I got to see it. So I was a big sci-fi throughout the 80s. My mom took me to see this little film called Ice Pirates. It's terrible, but I love it. I
don't know this movie.
I have a friend who watches Ice Pirates every year on Thanksgiving. I don't know why, but it's his Thanksgiving movie.
Yeah.
Louise will not watch Santa Claus Conquers the Martians with me. Absolutely not.
What's that?
I've got taste.
I don't know about that one.
It's dreadful, but hilarious.
It's always on like the top 50 worst movies of all time list.
I've never seen it outside of Mystery Science Theater 3000. Like I've never seen it without Joel and the robots making fun of it.
I'm gonna have to find that. Interesting.
Yes, it's legendarily or notoriously bad.
Check
hilarious.
Check Tubi TV if you have that app. It might be there. They've Tubi I've discovered a few months back, and they just have this wonderful cornucopia of really bad, great B movies.
Like Shudder or different from Shudder.
Oh, you'll probably find it on something like Film Bug or any of those
Shudder, I don't know.
lesser ones. Those lesser ones, they bound to have it. They've probably got it on YouTube. In fact,
I just Googled Santa Claus versus the Martian, or Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. It's on YouTube.
The whole film.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
If you have Shudder, you can watch Chopping Mall. Now there's a good one.
It cost me £1 on DVD.
That's
pound well spent.
Yeah.
Nice.
But then this takes us into that kind of cult classic area where we, use that word classic, and we do it almost tongue in cheek because there's a recognition with cult classics that they're not great, but they've developed this cult following. And I mean, I remember the first time I saw Rocky Horror Picture Show, and I will still 3 or 4 times a year just on YouTube pull up Tim Curry's opening scene where he introduces himself as Dr. Frankenfurter, because I've never seen anybody just go for it the way that guy went for it in that scene. And I'm just like, I hope to one day have that amount of charisma in my life. And so
I wish I had legs like that.
Yeah, seriously.
Right?
Yeah. And so but that's a cult classic. It's a bizarre movie, but it's great. I love it. But yeah, it's that cult classic. And I think that's what's really fun to see, with my brother being a lot younger than I am. There are some movies that generation just picks up on for some odd reason, and they suddenly become cult classics for them in a way that they might not even have been for people who are 40 or so. So it's interesting to see.
That's a whole different genre.
I mean, when you have a film that continues to play, and you have sellouts at midnight shows, and these people are dressing up, going line for line, singing along. I mean, that's a classic, no matter if it's a cult classic or anything. I mean, it's a classic. If it stands the test, I think that's a perfect example of a film that's standing the test of time. It might not be a household name, if you will, as something like maybe a David Lean film, but it's still a film that people enjoy decade after decade.
Well, and speaking of sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, speaking of Tim Curry, my favorite cult classic ever, Clue.
Yeah.
Oh,
yes.
God.
Yeah. That is a really good film.
God, it's so good. But people hated it when it came out. And now it's like everybody loves it. And I'm like, no, I've liked Clue since I was a kid.
Right. That was
one of 3 endings.
Right. It was one of those films that HBO would play 5 times a day,
Yeah.
I think I remember I was going to say a program I've listened to before. I think it was Film Sack or one of the other podcasts. They actually looked at the film Clue, and they were saying how when that film first came out, it might have been more liked in the UK because it matched the UK sense of humor or their type of comedy more than the American comedy. But over the years, it's been more accepted by Americans because the humor in America, you've got more of our shows over there. So perhaps that humor
dry,
of Clue,
it's very fast. It's very like this. Yeah.
So perhaps that's what's happened is over the years, like a lot of films, they'll grow in stature and they'll actually be received better later in time.
Absolutely. I mean, that's Shawshank Redemption is one of those films, I mean, it was, in and out of theaters, I think probably in a month. And next thing you know, it has this wonderful, cult following on cable.
Well, they talk about how, Jesus, and the movie just went out of my head. Jimmy Stewart Christmas movie.
Oh, It's a Wonderful
Life.
That's it. Yeah. But that movie, when it came out, made no blip on anybody's radar and only became classic because the rights went up for grabs, and what was it, NBC or something picked NBC. It up in the 50s or 60s. It was like, hey, here's something we can just show for free.
Right. He had all of these wonderful classic movies prior to It's a Wonderful Life. And in that movie, almost in a way, just got shed on, when it first came out.
Yep. Go on, Louise.
I actually didn't like that the first time I watched it. And now it comes out every year. And I actually heard somewhere that they use it in, I think, mental institutions or something in America.
It's used for Samaritans, isn't it? They use it for people who attempt suicide. They'll use it as a thing for them. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
God, I love that movie.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I cried just thinking about it.
I did classic Christmas films last year.
Hi, this is Katie at Bad Counsel with some good counsel. You should keep listening to Marv at Pods Like Us.
What's next?
I was going to say, what about classic TV series? Like, I don't know, dare I say Seinfeld, things like that?
Well, yeah, Friends. Again, that's, those films are those TV shows, sorry. I mean, those are the ones where, you're talking about it at work. You're calling people and talking about it. You're having show parties. I remember the series finale of Lost. We had a party. I mean, it's shows like that can be considered classic. Absolutely. I mean, shows that end on their own, on their own terms too, that have that long run and they're able to, end on their own. I mean, I guess you can say yes. Yeah. Go on, they're out on their own terms, Mary Tyler Moore, Honeymooners.
MASH.
MASH.
Yeah.
Dallas. Oh, Dallas was so good.
But it's interesting when you talk about, I think there's the distinction though between TV and film, and that a lot of the movies we talked about, all of us have rewatched numerous times. Right. And yet some of my favorite television shows, I have never watched an episode of after they finished. I love The Sopranos,
right?
But I never watched it after. And, but I think some are, I think, it's interesting. Shows like Friends or Seinfeld that are these kind of 30-minute capsules you can just kind of pick up and rewatch and whatever. But like these films, there are these shows that had these really complex narrative arcs and, things like Mad Men. And, I've liked the really bizarre show on HBO a long time ago called Carnival. But like these were shows that I loved, but I never watch it again just because even if it's on a rerun, I'll sit there and be like, oh, well, it's like episode 3. Like I have to remember what happened in episode 1 and 2. And like, I don't know what's going on. So that's
did you really like it? Well, but then did you really like it then? I mean, if you're not willing to put the time, like, before each season of Lost would come on, I would always always watch the past season again, just so my memory was there. But you bring up a good point about watching these newer shows again. It's like I've actually been trying to kind of make time to rewatch Game of Thrones, and it's just it's just not happening. It's for whatever reason, it's just but there's shows out there. But then if I'm flipping through the channels and The Office comes on, I'm going to watch it
every time.
Every time.
The thing about TV shows that I find is the doom to me of ever watching another television show again was getting married, because what I like to do with television is show it to a new person. And now I'm married and I've had the same friends for the last how many years. So it's just, there's nobody coming over to my house that I can be like, you haven't seen the first 3 seasons of Arrested Development. Guess what we're doing?
Well, I just showed Lost to my husband last year. I had seen it. He hadn't. So we did a complete rewatch, and it's so nice to have streaming because it's like you can binge it. And definitely for me, like Lost hit different the second time. Like the first time I was so pissed at the ending. The second time I was like, oh, okay, I actually kind of like this. And this is the way it should have ended. So, but yeah, like Friends, I've seen every episode no less than 10 times. So it's different for a sitcom.
Spoilers beware, but I was actually on Facebook, Lost chats and whatever. And then when you were talking about the last season, and I was probably like one of the only few that predicted the last scene. And I know the very first scene's open with Jack opens his eye. And I was like, the best way to end it is with Jack closing his eye, and it's just like, yes. And when I saw that,
I predicted that ending, not like that, but I predicted the ending.
Right.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Cool. Yeah.
I think some series are good because you can just, dip into them.
Right.
Like Seinfeld.
It doesn't matter where, what season. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like you can just turn on an episode of The Office. You can just turn on an episode of Friends. You're not going to just, a random episode of Breaking Bad is on.
Good point.
Let me watch
the situation,
Lost.
the
You miss
comedies.
one and you're done.
The comedies is a completely different watching monster. You're not going to just start Twin Peaks halfway through season 2.
Right.
Good luck. Although it's probably the way Lynch like thought about it in his head. It was all all over the place. But yeah,
it would be the way that
genius,
Christopher Nolan would make it that way.
It wouldn't be
All right.
A bit like Memento. In reverse.
Do it in reverse. There you go.
We've worked out how she dies. Now go back to the original. We have no idea how she died. But these things, though, I mean, that's an interesting one that you bring up with television shows. Like when you mentioned Seinfeld and you mentioned Friends, the same with classic films. You've got certain bits that stick out about them, a bit like, there's the famous one. I'm not that well versed with Seinfeld. Louise is. But the soup Nazi in
no
Seinfeld,
soup for you.
That got me. No soup for you. No soup for you.
We actually had a record store out here. He brought the actor in to do a signing because he had this little pop figure, and so they had a bunch of people, and then he was there to do signings for his pop figure. It was pretty funny.
Did you go up to him and say, "No signing for you"?
For you.
But also, I think the thing about like Seinfeld and Friends, and even maybe like Cheers and Frasier and Will and Grace's, there's so much stuff. And I'm not saying this is a bad thing because I'm glad that we're evolving, but there's no way you could get away with soup Nazi now. Like there's just no way.
Right.
And so I appreciate that. I appreciate the growth of society, but also it's like the generation that we're from, like that shit was funny.
Right.
Yeah. No, I
wanted to say, talking about classic TV, the one thing that throws me off nowadays is I have gotten so used to the modern sitcom, like The Good Place, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, The Office, Arrested Development, Modern Family. I can't watch things with a laugh track anymore. It upsets me. I don't like
happy
that.
Days,
Doesn't bother me.
That's funny because Matthew's brother Nathaniel, that was mentioned in Nathaniel's show Binge Bros the other day, where he said that he thinks that laugh tracks automatically date a program.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. I mean, those, multi-camera. Yeah. I mean, it's just, it does date those shows. And I'm the same way. Like I used to love growing up. I used to love, really weird show, Alf, about this like alien puppet.
I had the elf stuffed animal.
I loved Alf. I went back and like randomly saw an episode of that a couple like years ago. And I was like, oh, this is awful. Like this is not good at all. And I was like, oh, no wonder my dad always like rolled his eyes every time I was like screaming for it to be on the TV. Right. And, but then I can go back and watch, but to your point, Amanda, it wasn't sitcom, but I can go back and watch the old like Perry Masons or like I can watch like the crime procedurals a little bit. Like those have dated pretty well, where they were just kind of down the middle on a lot of stuff. And so I can watch. I used to love watching those, black and white reruns when I was a kid.
Oh yeah, me too.
That was great.
But they're different each episode, so that kind of helps. But the laugh track thing, like I get laugh tracks are weird, but I think having a live studio audience, I appreciate that we grew up having that, because if you watched Friends and you saw that scene where Monica and Chandler are in bed together and she pops out from under the blanket and she's like, "Do you think you saw me?" And the whole studio audience is like, like you don't get those moments on TV now because you don't have the element of surprise. Like at home you do, but like I think the audience being there and having the same level of surprise that you have when something happens, like to me, that made it feel more special. But
I thought that was one of the great things about the earlier episodes of the Marvel series WandaVision, the earlier ones, where they actually did film those first couple of episodes in front of a live audience. And they did it
I didn't know that they did. That's interesting.
Yes, they actually did. I saw behind the scenes and they were talking about it on there. And for those first couple, they went age specific. So because they were basing it around the 50s and then the 60s,
Right.
the first and then the second episode, they did it age equivalent. So they recorded it that way as well in front of a live audience as well to get that natural. And they used the effects then as well. So they did have like string pulling things up and, you know, to do the magic tricks and whatever. So they used the same everything for it. And I thought that was fascinating how they actually did that time specific to exactly copy those times.
Cool. Paying tribute to that era. Absolutely.
Do you think that technology dates things as well, like the phones on Wall Street and that sort of thing?
I just recorded for another show, Collateral Cinema and we did the first Scream movie. And I said, it's hilarious nowadays that you watch the first Scream movie and Billy becomes a suspect right away because, he has a cell phone. It's like, that's just crazy nowadays. Like, it's weird that this character had a cell phone. And it's a movie that came out in my, I'm age appropriate for that movie. I was a teenager when Scream came out. I didn't have a cell phone. I remember it. But even now, it's like, boy, that's literally why we always joke the little kids think we're dinosaurs, because it's like, even I can't remember not having a cell phone.
But you look at some films now, and if they remade some of the films now, like Home Alone, always go, I'll just use a cell phone. Hello, we've left you a time. We'll come back and fetch you.
Just not as fun.
And all these films would be so different now if they had mobile phones back then and added them to the films.
You know, Texas Chainsaw Massacre would be totally different. You know.
And I don't think it's just technology. I don't think it's just technology, but it's like societal or like pop culture references, like, you know, going back to Friends, watching Friends back. My neighbor's daughter a few years ago when she was 16, this is like 4 years ago, she's like, I'm going to watch Friends. It was on Netflix. And I kept watching it going, he's got a pager. She's not going to know what that means. And like, they made some joke about Marcel Marceau. She's not going to know what that means. And like all these different references, but honestly, she still loved it, even though she didn't get all the jokes. But it is hard sometimes with pop culture stuff that people are too young to know about. And it's like, what? Why is that funny?
But if you look at like films, like in an animated film or whatnot, there's the stuff in there for the kids, and then there's stuff in there for you know, the adults that those kids won't, you know, pick up on, you know, until maybe later on, and when they're showing their kids that film.
And for me, the technology, it's a little nostalgic, honestly. Like, I enjoy it. Like, I was just watching the Harrison Ford movie Clear and Present Danger a couple weeks ago, and which is just a great Tom Clancy movie. And what was so funny was, you know, he's like, they're printing off documents, and it's like these long, like
dot
matrix printer, and like the screens are just like, you know, black with blue letters or green letters. And I'm like, this is like high school for me all over again.
That's like Windows 2.
It was just like, oh, right, that's how we used to do things. And
Hey, it's the boys from Soft Spoken, and we are so glad that you are listening to our new friend Marv and his podcast, Pods Like Us.
Yeah, we were recently on the show for a couple of episodes, and we really enjoyed it. And if you'd like to catch a little bit more of us with all the raunchiness and sauce-based humor that you're used to, feel free to check us out on our show. But in the meantime, keep enjoying Pods Like Us with Marv.
We enjoyed talking with Marv as much as we hope you enjoy listening to him.
Now back to the show.
And it works the other way around too, is because I am a classic Doctor Who fan. I am Tom Baker, Fourth Doctor, through and through. And you know, you watch those special features then, and just how little money they had, you know, to put in their special features. And then you watch this new run, and everything is computer animated or generated or whatever. And it, you know, for me, it just doesn't have that same creative feel as those original, you know, that original run had. Just because maybe technology wasn't better, but it was at least maybe a little bit more creative.
Yeah, I'm the same way with Star Trek, because my favorite Star Trek is the original series, because of the creativity that they had in that, that I think made the episodes more interesting in a way, because they had that such a small budget and such little effects to use.
And then if you get this, and then you can go back and watch it with, you know, updated special, you know, computer animated or computer generated scenes, you know.
So. Well, that's something I've talked about on my podcast, like ad nauseum. Like I've talked about this so many times that I love technology. I love the stuff they can do with it. I think it makes stuff really cool, but I appreciate like Nightmare on Elm Street when Johnny Depp's character gets killed and all that blood comes out from the bed.
Right.
Okay, now they do that with a computer. Can you imagine the creativity and imagination and like ingenuity it took to create that?
Right.
Like people don't get it because you don't have to do that now.
You know,
I like it better.
Yeah, I mean, Rob, you mentioned Jurassic Park earlier, and I think that's a great example of a movie that used a lot of practical effects. Actually, like the T-Rex was a real physical thing that they built, and it still holds up so well when you rewatch it in a way that, you know, something like the original Ghostbusters when they had their like ridiculous animation, like the green ecto that, you know, shoots up out of I love it, but it looks so bad. And it's just, but I mean, that's an example of where using
it's
that.
Also 1984.
Yeah,
Doesn't that add to the fact that it's a comedy as well?
Yeah, it does.
But you're right with Jurassic Park. It works brilliantly because it's a great use of animatronics, so practical, but with the occasional bit of CGI that's cutting edge at the time, where it works back then, but perhaps CGI now is too much of a thing. But then what Tom said about Star Trek, that brings another thing that's bugs the hell out of me: the Star Wars thing with the alterations that were made to that. And then Spielberg did it with E.T. And people doing that, and it can get irritating. Or perhaps that's just me being an old curmudgeon.
Ray Harryhausen fans, aren't we?
Yes.
And we think that, like Amanda was saying, I think sometimes when you have too many special effects, you lose the magic. And we like the Sinbad and Clash of the Titans because animation is so simple and almost not naive.
Just want to grab it and watch it now.
I know, me too.
There's something about those special effects of Harryhausen though, with the stop motion, where it makes it even creepier because of the way that the movement of the stop motion, and that makes it
not
more
just that, the makeup as well. I think is just a lot more creative than what they had to do. I mean, now you just put all these dots on their faces and then they go and they do it.
They're classics to us.
Computer.
They're classics to us, aren't they?
Yeah.
I feel like creativity is gone. Not really. It's just a different kind.
I just want to say I apologize. I'm running up against my time where I'm going to have to drop out here for my other show. So I just want to say thanks for the conversation to this point. Sorry, I have to bail on everybody.
Thank you, Rob. I'll give you a shout for another show sometime.
Absolutely. Take care, guys.
Thanks. Take care, Rob. Nice meeting you. Yeah.
Thanks, Rob. So, blimey, we're having a good time. Yeah.
I know we're talking a lot, but it's good. Interesting conversation.
I like
it.
some of your other questions that you had too here.
Absolutely.
Oh
yeah. So you want to go with?
Yeah. So what? Actually, Matthew's an interesting one here with his brother Nathaniel. Are there any classic films that you think of that you've introduced Nathaniel to? Where
how old is he?
It's worked in some ways and it's not in other ways.
So
there's a difference in age between the two of you.
Yeah. So my brother's 16 years younger than me. So he's about to be 25 in December. And I'll be honest, I'm going to call my dad out right now. I don't know what my dad was doing raising this kid. Because like all the films that he introduced to me and made me watch, and I'm just like, Nathaniel, you know this movie, right? He's like, no, Dad never watched that with me. And I'm like, what's going on? So I had to do a lot of kind of like, all right, you got to watch this. You got to watch this. You got to watch this. I think some of the, like the 80s comedies have started to kind of work, like The Stripes and some of the Bill Murray stuff from that at that time was just really funny because again, I think when you're introducing younger people, those are pretty short movies. They're not.
Good point.
There's not a lot of fat on them.
Right.
They move fast. They're kind of ridiculous, almost sublime in some ways. And I just think, and they also have, somebody like Bill Murray has become kind of a cultural icon. And he's still relevant today, thanks to Wes Anderson and Sofia Coppola. Right. And so he's still relevant. So he's someone that younger people still go, oh, I know who that guy is. Oh, wow. I never knew he was in a movie back, 40 years ago. I'll check that out. So I think, if you can find films that still have some strand of connection to what's going on today in pop culture, that's a great entry point for young people.
Yep. There's actually, I'm not sure whether this is real or just, there's a rumor going around. So Bill Murray is supposedly being spotted on the set of the next Ant-Man film. And the rumor is that he's playing as a cameo the same character that he played in Groundhog Day.
Shut up.
Oh my God. Yeah.
As a cameo.
Bill, that would be amazing.
That was crazy. And you think about, what's popular today that you could introduce to the millennials and the generation after that. I mean, you think of superhero movies. Okay, what was big? When I was a kid, you're looking at Superman 2. You go to Batman, and from '89, you look at those type of movies that they're not that long either. Maybe under 2-hour mark, but it would keep their pique their interest and maybe go down that path, okay, and watch those films. But I mean, I think comedies too are something that maybe, and then plus the horror genre, I think has been since the 70s really, I think has really just become a phenomenon, on its own. I mean, I know there's those classic horror films from the 30s and 40s and whatnot, and the Hammer films from the 70s, but you don't see those being talked about as much these days anymore since we've had Halloween and Nightmare and Friday the 13th films, and those films $1.20, $1.30, and you're it's got some some intense scenes in them, and maybe that will spawn the next generation to check out those films as well, because obviously they're still making those films.
I mean, I think it depends a lot on kind of cultural context or pop culture, because I know, so I saw Halloween when I was 5 years old. I saw Nightmare on Elm Street when I was 6 years old. My mom was a teen mom when she had me, and she had no F's to give about anything. So I saw everything. So I grew up on horror because she loved it, and then I was scared, but I also loved it. So when I realized my daughter kind of I didn't show her those movies when she was little, but as she grew up, she kind of had a, she kind of gravitated towards Five Nights at Freddy's and Nightmare Before Christmas. She just always liked the dark stuff. So I showed her Halloween. I think maybe she was 11, maybe 12. And she was like, this movie is so boring. And I was like, you just broke my heart. But then a couple of years later, especially as the Rob Zombie movies got a little more pop. Well, this is after that, but I think it comes with age and pop culture. She got into it, and then she was like, oh my God, this movie's amazing. So I think you have the new movies are kind of bringing kids in to the newer stuff, but I think too, there's still a lot of older, especially the Christmas movies. I think, going back to Christmas Story, It's a Wonderful Life, Miracle on 34th Street, and even Home Alone. I grew up, Home Alone, we watched it every Thanksgiving night because it was on TV. It was on NBC or whatever. Mm-hmm. So that's a newer movie, but it's still okay, well, now I do that with my daughter. And The Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, and Charlie Brown Christmas. We watch it every single year.
As long as as long as people continue to watch those and they get ratings, they'll continue to show them. But Die Hard Christmas movie, yes or no?
Absolutely. It's not Christmas till Hans Gruber falls off Nakatomi Plaza.
But then an argument could be made that virtually every film by Shane Black is a Christmas film. Because they're all based at Christmas.
You always say, don't you?
Lethal Weapon.
There's a film on.
True.
That's true. Yeah.
I think 80%. I
would call Lethal Weapon a Christmas
films
movie.
have Christmas in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends, but so I also had just movies that I think maybe millennials would like, but I don't have anything to base this off of other than just what I think are good movies. Obviously the Christmas ones. I think Psycho, The Godfather. Actually, I say The Godfather Part 2 because I think it's better than the original, but that's just me. Mm-hmm.
There's an argument to be made for that.
Yeah, there is.
I mean, I think there is.
I think it depends on. I think it depends on what mood you're in for the Godfathers, because they are both.
True.
It's difficult because you're basically comparing two 5-star films to each other in a sense. It's
I think I personally like watching Michael's journey, and then also his dad's journey as younger. I think I appreciate Michael's journey more than I do the first movie, even though they're both really good.
I mean, I will admit I prefer the second one of the two. I love both films, 1 and 2, but number 2, I like it's almost like it's almost Shakespearean in a way, where you've got the father's journey and the son's journey running parallel. So you see a bit of the son's journey, a bit of the father's journey when he's younger and the same age. And I think there's a nice almost poeticness to the fact that where they both sort of equal each other through the film.
Yeah, you see a lot of similarities.
Right. Yeah. It's like when I'm watching The Godfather, I think this is the best film. And when I'm watching The Godfather Part 2, I think this is the better film. You know, I can't just come out and say which one I think is better. It's just so tough, you know, because I love
Al Pacino is hotter in 2. That's why it's
I was just going to say it's interesting because those are two. Listen, as an Italian American, I love both of those two movies. They're fantastic, but they're also long, and I feel like Godfather, the first one, it starts off with such a bang with the wedding scene and Luca Brasi and all of this stuff, and you get introduced to this whole family and Sonny and everything, and kind of then once he goes over to Sicily, then things kind of start to go, it's slow down a little bit, and he meets Apollonia, and you're like, what's going on? And so I could see like the first hour really attracting like a young person. And then like when things slow down, like I could have that heart-wrenching moment of somebody like 20 years old next to me going, this is boring. Like I'm like,
but once they're in the restaurant and the tension starts with the whole with the cop and the Turk, and, you know, and Al walks into the bathroom to get the gun. I mean, that I remember the
Take
first
the gun,
time.
Leave the cannoli.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there you go.
That's a line too.
But the diner scene that for me is what really just grabs you and takes that film to the next level. I mean, the tension and I remember the first time watching that, and I was just like, you know, like that throughout the whole scene, because it was just so tense and powerful.
I think a lot of films have classic scenes as well.
Yeah,
that always stand out.
So many.
The Godfather I was going to carry on with, because my mum actually read the book, The Godfather. She read the book, and she said to me, she said that it's a rare moment where, in her opinion, the film is actually better than the book, because they've actually cropped out a fair amount of the book, because the book is very hefty.
Yeah.
I have it. It's pretty.
She says about a third of the book is actually about the history of the mafia, or something, or goes really deep into it, and a lot of that, Francis Ford Coppola and Mario Puzo, because they worked on it together.
Yeah,
doing the film, the script for it, they lopped a heck of a lot of that actually out of the film. But even out of both films, but even still, they've come out with
so long,
sizable films.
Did anybody watch The Last Dawn, the miniseries?
No, I didn't. No,
I have not.
No. That was a Puzo written series as well, right? Yeah. He wrote the book for that as well, I think. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I think The Godfather takes, I would say when I watched it when I was younger, even The Godfather 2, I was like, this is okay. But as I got older, I appreciated it more. I mean, the drama and the score, and especially in part 2, Michael's struggle, like that just really resonated with me. I don't really know why, but it just did. So I think that it's not like I grew up in a mafia family or anything, but I think it's a struggle everybody has between who you're supposed to be and who you want to be.
Interesting bit of trivia. Mario Puzo wrote the script for Superman.
Yeah.
Huh.
For the first Superman film with Christopher Reeve.
And you know, Amanda, you brought up something interesting too about us as kids and what we were able to watch. I could, my dad would take me to a video store, and VHS store or whatever, and he would let me. Exactly. Yeah. Well, these were the more independent, but he would let me come out with like, the Terminator and and the Die Hard, and I'm still like, very young teen, and I'm getting to watch these films. I remember, when we had HBO, he would let me watch the Conans and these R-rated violent movies that I probably shouldn't have been watching at the time. And then now, as you have a daughter right now, you said, right? I mean, I'm sure you're not letting her watch these films as young as probably you were watching them.
No.
Yeah.
But Michael Myers has also haunted my dreams since I was a child, so I didn't want to do that to her.
I'm now imagining Matthew. I'm now imagining Matthew forcing Nathaniel to watch The Godfather as a 6-year-old.
Listen, the kid barely could make it through the animated version of Pocahontas the first like 6 minutes. I love making fun of him with this, but yeah, there's a storm on the high seas, and he always got too scared. And he's like, "Can we just fast forward through this?" I was like, "Yes, we can go through this." So, but no, I mean, it is funny about kids of a certain age, I think, and kind of upbringing. My dad used to quote the film. Not the original Scarface, but the Al Pacino Scarface to me all the time when I was growing up. And he assumed from the age of like 10 that I knew what he was talking about. I mean, it's one of the most violent movies you could possibly show a kid. I never saw it because of that. But he would always, whenever I got too big for my britches, he would always use the line that F. Murray Abrams uses in the movie where he goes, "Oh, you want to be a big man? Hey, big man, big bucks, hey, digame." And he would always say that to me. He's like, "You want to be a big man, make big bucks, digame." And I just thought my dad was crazy because I had no point of reference for any of this. I had no idea what he was talking about. And then finally, I was like 16 or 17, and it was on HBO one night, and I watched Scarface, and I was like, "Oh, that's what you've been putting to me for the last 6 years." And he's like, "Oh yeah, I just thought you watched it." And I was like, "When? Like when I was 10? Like you're
when
insane."
When I watched Scarface,
right?
So
it's not suitable for children,
right? Under any circumstances.
Would he pass the pet dog to you and say hello to my little friend?
Hey, this is Greg at Bad Counsel. You want some good counsel? Keep listening to Pods Like Us with Marv and Down with Monarchy.
Well, my husband and I speak fluently in movie quotes, and half the time our daughter has no idea what we're talking about. So we're like, someday she'll get it. And we've tried to make her watch a lot of movies, and some she likes, and mostly she just resists because if we like it, that means it's stupid.
Right.
So
of course.
Someday she'll get it.
But then I never thought that growing up.
I didn't either.
Because my parents were fans of these films, so I watched them. I mean, except for The Sound of Music, which I hated. Everything else that they were introducing to me, I mean, I pretty much enjoyed.
Yeah, there also wasn't as much. Yeah, there wasn't as much content when we were kids either. Like, so a lot of the content was, especially if you were watching at home on cable or those 3 stations, it was a lot of
whatever was on.
Yeah, and it was the stuff your parents liked. And so you just kind of learned to like it.
The new HBO Saturday night movie was like, that's the tits. Let's watch the new movie. Like, come on.
We had about 3 or 4 stations.
We had 3 channels.
3 channels.
So did I. I mean, I was lucky though. By growing up in Michigan, I was able to get all these Canadian stations as well.
Oh, cool.
So I was able to take all of that stuff in, and that's where I was able to be introduced to the Doctor Who show. Was from that,
more risky in Canada, you see.
Oh well, you might get a boob every once in a while on one of those late night shows.
Maybe a side one.
Maybe a side shot. Absolutely.
Anybody else grow up watching Skinamax?
Oh
well, sure. Yeah, there's.
Yeah.
We talk about. You want to talk about classics? I mean, come on.
If I stay up past midnight, there might be some nudity.
Exactly. That's funny too. You mentioned that because I would sometimes sneak out because I'm probably a little older than you guys, but I would sneak up and turn the TV on when my mom and dad, they were in their bedroom, and then I would have the TV on, and I'm always have it on silent because you can't hear it. You don't want to wake them because you want to, as the preteen, I'm looking for naked women and all that stuff, and then you would hear the door open and then you would act like you're act like you're sleeping.
Yeah. It's like American Pie when she's like, "Are you trying to watch illegal channels?" And all like fuzzies.
And I've done that.
I remember actually with Tom mentioned Hammer films earlier on, and me and my brothers used to wait till my mum used to go to bed, and then we'd get up and we would watch the Hammer films at about 11 o'clock at night. And my oldest brother Richard would always go and hide behind the settee. Right. And when suddenly the fangs came out and Christopher Lee's like like that. And it used to be the same with the Daleks in Doctor Who and Tom Baker.
I used to have one of those. Yeah, I used to have one of those mini portable TV, black and white portable TVs. That I have in my bed with me. And when the parents go to bed, you flip the channel because you knew where Benny Hill was going to be playing. I could get that. And then you can see half naked women running around. It's just it's so silly when you look back at it now.
We would stay up and watch Tales from the Crypt on HBO.
That's a classic.
Because you get the horror, but you also get the cheesy nudity and the cheesy stories. It's like, okay, there you go.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, Twilight Zone. That's a classic.
It is.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
The Twilight Zone.
Well,
and that's another one.
Not so much the film.
Yeah, but that's another one where Tom, to your point earlier, it is Jordan Peele's kind of remaking those.
Right.
It doesn't detract from the originals, though. I mean, you can think what you will. I think I like some of those episodes more than others of the new one, but the old ones are still great and absolutely still classics. And those are also ones that I found I can revisit those as many times as I want because they are standalone kind of episodes in most cases, and so it's really easy to rewatch.
Can you get something called Tales of the Unexpected over there?
No,
this is like moralistic
they get
stories.
They get it in Canada, but they don't get it in America.
Moralistic stories with a twist, aren't they?
Most of them are written by Roald Dahl. Actually.
Yes, they're.
I'll tell you, my favorites that I've discovered from the UK that ended up airing on Comedy Central over here would be Ab Fab and what's the other one I'm drawing? Faulty Towers.
Yes, I was going to mention that if you didn't. Yeah.
But I love Absolutely Fabulous. I love Faulty Towers. Those are two of my favorite comedic shows from the UK.
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, I love Faulty.
I thought Matthew might be a fan of Blackadder.
No, I just my parents introduced me to Faulty Towers and John Cleese and all the Monty Python guys when I was a kid,
Cleese.
and I just I mean, when the old general thinks that the moose is speaking Spanish above the I speak English very well. I learned it from a book. Where'd you get that moose, Faulty? Canada. I didn't know they made things like that in Canada. That's a good bit.
Full Monty is one of my favorite movies, by the way. British humor is my jam. Like I feel like I need to live over there. I have a friend on Facebook. We met through a Stephen King group, so he's always trying to he sends me all these comedians and he helps me with my British vernacular, and then I help him with American football. So we're always like talking. He'll be like, okay, they're showing this game and this game. Which one should I watch? And then I'll be like, tell me how to say this in British slang.
Right.
So the Full Monty, I love that movie. And several years ago, I was in Sheffield, which is where the film takes place, or where it was filmed. Yep. And I actually visited, this is so nerdy. I went to the job center in Sheffield where they all were kind of unemployed.
Did you dance?
No, I didn't do the dance. But I didn't want to find out what the inside of a British jail was. But I have like a picture of me by the job center in Sheffield, England, and I just
you're in the unemployment line, not dancing.
Exactly. I'm just one of the sad saps. But
you don't want to visit a British job center.
Well, obviously you did.
Yeah. Well, it was the outside. I was just But yeah, no, cool. And it'd be, it's interesting. Those British films started to, you had that, but then you also had the Guy Ritchie kind of influx that started to come with
Lock,
Stock, and Snatch, and and that was
Guy Ritchie. I can't remember.
No.
Okay.
The filmmaker Guy Ritchie. He used to be married to Madonna, didn't he? Back in the day?
Yes.
Yeah. But Trainspotting was. Damn it! I hate when I have a brain fart.
It's Ewan McGregor, but
yeah.
I'm
sure there's going to be 100 people. Doyle. Peter.
Oh. I don't know. Sorry, guys.
Figure it out. No,
thousands of people are screaming at us right now.
They really are. I do that all the time when I listen to podcasts, even when I listen to my own, and I realize I made a mistake.
Directed Slumdog Millionaire, isn't it that one? Danny Boyle.
Danny Boyle. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Slumdog Millionaire. That movie's fantastic. So did you guys
go on? Amanda.
I'm sorry. No, you go ahead.
I was going to say, Matthew, Fawlty Towers did the Simpsons introduction before the Simpsons didn't they? You know, with the blackboard.
Yeah.
But with Fawlty Towers, it said a different name on the sign every time for Fawlty Towers, where they changed the letters around.
I think that's the part I love most about going back and watching older things, because you realize how many modern shows pay homage to those older things. And you want to talk about how you get millennials into that stuff. Tom, I think your point about the Supermans of the 70s, the Christopher Reeve stuff, like that's a great entry, but it's like showing them like, okay, you really love this movie. Well, this director is paying homage to this movie that he loved. Yeah, and so let's go back and watch that. And let's, keep kind of, peeling back the onion, and because that person was influenced by somebody else, and you just kind of keep going back. And I think that's one of the things I'm excited about with people like Bong Joon-ho and even people like but even people like Tarantino and Scorsese, who just talk so much about their movies and their influences, that when those movies get really big, it all of a sudden opens the door up to other films that people hadn't heard of before or didn't have much knowledge of.
But they're with Tarantino and with Scorsese as well, to a degree. They both acknowledge that they are paying tribute in some cases, in some of the shots that they do to filmmakers of old. I mean, I remember Brian De Palma would say that he very often used to, not imitate, but used to pay tribute to shoot things
to
Hitchcock a lot.
Same with John Carpenter.
Yeah.
And I love that a lot of TV shows. I mean, if you watch a lot of like more current TV shows, they're even The Office, but even more current, like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, or like even like Tacoma FD, or like even Modern Family, like all these different sitcoms. They're all trying to throw in these little like Easter eggs for people our age to like pay homage to something, but also then that makes it available for you to introduce to your kids when they're like, well, what's that joke about? If you see don't mess with the bull, you get the horns. Oh, let me introduce you to the Breakfast Club.
I know you do. You don't like the Breakfast Club, but it actually. I mean, the series that for you in America is on Hulu, and for us in the UK it's on Disney Plus. Only Murders in the Building.
I love it.
Technically, Tina Fey is doing a variation of a character that she used to do on Saturday Night Live. I think. Who was.
Tina Fey's not on that show, is she?
Is it Tina Fey? Oh, am I thinking of?
Isn't she an agent?
I've only watched 3 episodes, but
what's the show called?
Only Murders in the Building.
Yeah, Selena Gomez.
Steve Martin Short.
Oh, Martin Short. Okay.
Is it?
Is that what you're talking about?
Oh, is that that's the Hulu show?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
I think.
I haven't seen it yet.
I think
it's so good.
I think Tina Fey does appear later on as
she might, yeah.
She appears as a podcaster herself, who does
because that's their whole thing. The whole show revolves around they all listen to the same podcast, and they decide to start their own podcast about a murder that happened in their building.
But she's a top celebrity podcaster, you see, that's paid millions, you see. So I think it's a variation of characters that she's done before.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
and Selena Gomez does a good job, right?
No, we can't.
Yeah, she does a good job of holding her own with those 2 superstars. I was impressed because Selena Gomez isn't that, but she's really good.
She's really good in that. Yeah. It gets better, by the way.
I'm excited. It's so good.
And there's an appearance by Sting as well.
Nice.
Which is really
so
funny.
it's not a film then. I thought it was a film.
It's a series.
No, it's a show.
it's a series.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
About half an hour
It's-
each, aren't they?
Yeah.
I recommend it.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Okay. Good.
Just-
Thank you for that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just wait for Sting when he does his song. It's brilliant. He does a
Does he
song. It's brilliant.
Does he do some tantra? Because that's what I want to see.
I didn't murder Tim Kono. Oh no.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I didn't murder Tim Kono. Oh no. That's
What
he
else did you
sings.
have, Amanda, for choices for millennials besides?
Yes.
Well, I was actually ready to move on to the next one, but I basically like the ones I said, I think, and then like Breakfast at Tiffany's, maybe My Fair Lady. I think they take a certain kind of appreciation, but I think that you could get like girls of a certain age to like those.
Right.
Totally.
And then, I mean, Halloween, and I think it's making a big comeback where I think you can get people to, I think we're circling back around to the appreciation for the simple, which I think is Halloween is all about simplicity, which is, you guys, it's my number one favorite movie of all time, full disclosure.
Fair.
So, and it's brilliant and genius, and I love it. And I think that everybody's all about technology, but I think maybe not millennials, but definitely Gen Z is very much about simplicity and, you know, let's make stuff less complicated. Let's make stuff more organic and more, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. I can't remember.
Yeah, but I get where you're going.
Like more quality, but less quantity.
Okay.
I think a lot of younger people can like a film like Jaws, which I think is, to me, is a classic film. Jaws is a classic film to me. Fantastic film. But to a lot of younger people, I don't think that they can get past the shark effects.
But the brilliant thing about that is that the shark doesn't appear all that often. It's the fear of the
you don't see him
shark.
until like 40 minutes into the movie.
and it worked out beautifully the way because they couldn't ever get the shark to work, and so they had to keep cutting scenes, and it ended up becoming the best thing that ever happened to that movie because it was all psychological.
You have that anticipation throughout the film where it's like the shark is a part of the film, but it's not. It's the perfect, but by accident, it's the perfect Hitchcockian trick.
But
it's the build-up.
By accident, because they couldn't get the shark to work.
Right. And it's also, you talk about like things that get called back in future, like we're going to need a bigger boat. Like that's something that gets called back in pop culture all the time. And you can
there you go. Yes.
I love it. So
I think if younger people saw a film like The Meg, they'd think that Jaws was rubbish.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally.
I really do think that's the difference. And I only say this because I have employees that work for me that I think millennials, like if I were to show a millennial, like let's say a 28 to 32-year-old Halloween, they're going to be like, oh, this is like Meh and Meg, because they're expecting movies like Saw and the new Texas Chainsaw. Like they're expecting graphic stuff. But if you go to like, a Gen Zer who's a little bit younger, and I feel like they're being raised to be more, like I said, as my husband would call it, tree huggery, which I don't agree with, but whatever. I think they can have an appreciation for the more simpler things because they're trying not to fall into the trap that people older than them are, where, they're in debt or they're struggling or whatever. And I know that's different from movie watching, but I still feel it all goes back to simplicity.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That was my psychoanalysis for the evening. Thank you. And sorry, it's getting dark over here, so my face is getting all gothic.
That's okay. I'll do that as a screen grab to put on the show's.
This is Dave of Live Life Loud, the Decibelic podcast, and you're listening to Pods Like Us with Marv.
So did everybody have favorite and standout movies?
It's tough. I mean, there's so many. I think we could. This podcast could be another 3 hours. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Through the generation. Yeah, when I first started seriously watching films, and probably I would say 93, it was where Robert De Niro is my favorite actor of all time, and he always will be. So I'm watching his films, and then I'm seeing these other actors that I'm really starting to like. So then it just turns out to be this big tree to where you're just learning all these other films, and then you just end up seeing so many films. That
okay, so it's just quick fire, 5 movies.
Quick fire, Raging Bull, Clockwork Orange, Star Wars, Godfather, Seven Samurai.
Seven Samurai, yeah.
Wow. 7 for me. I'll go All the President's Men, which tells you a lot about me. Godfather 2, Goodfellas, Pulp Fiction, and then I'm going to go with a really random choice, which is Robin and the Seven Hoods, which is a very old Rat Pack movie.
Rat
which
Pack,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Louise.
Well, I went old school. Oh, I'm sorry, Louise, you go.
No, okay.
Amanda.
I'll have a think while you're saying.
Okay. Well, I went older school on mine, but I Psycho, Dracula, Roman Holiday, Miracle on 34th Street, and Halloween.
Oh.
Which version of Miracle on 34th Street?
The original.
The original.
The 1940.
The Natalie Wood.
Go into
Natalie Wood
again.
version.
What do you think of the remake?
It's average.
But you know, if they remade that now, the children would be sending their letters to Santa by email, wouldn't they?
Right?
Actually, they'd probably be tweeting him or something like that. They wouldn't even be like,
doesn't laugh anymore.
Where's my present?
Yeah, they were going around the shop with TikTok and showing him what they want. Want that.
They'd be scanning it as they go around.
I'm also super obsessed with Natalie Wood and her whole demise. So, but that movie is one of my favorite. It really is. There's a really good podcast about it too.
I like old films like, Blood Spirit, Brief Encounter.
Oh,
there's so many
some
films.
Great Natalie Wood performances out there. Yeah.
I quite like the old Titanic films, and there's actually some young people around that don't realise that Titanic actually happened. They think it was made up.
Right? Oh my God.
The Barbara Stanwyck Titanic. That's a good film.
Stanwyck is one of my favorites from that era. I just love some of the films
so beautiful
that she's done. Whether it's like Destry. No, I'm sorry, not. Now I just draw a blank. Double Indemnity.
Yes,
just so many great things that she's done. But go ahead. What were you saying? She did what?
She was in a really good version of Titanic.
Was it?
Yeah, a film about the Titanic, wasn't she?
I remember, was it with Kenneth More?
That's a good film.
Also, anything Hitchcock, put it on my list.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yes,
Yep. So I was going to say North by Northwest.
Mm-hmm.
North by Northwest. Crikey, Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Crikey.
Once Upon a Time in the West. I think that's a brilliant film. I'd probably say The Godfather as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I've already said Jaws.
Yeah.
But I think the best James Bond film is Goldfinger.
Okay.
No arguments.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Because every Bond film after that is based on the blueprint that film made.
I like You Only Live Once.
You Only Live Twice is a good film.
Or twice, sorry. YOLO. It was like YOLO. You only live twice.
Does everybody have a favorite decade for film?
The 80s.
Yes, I like the 80s.
Easily.
I like the 80s.
Can I say 55 to 65?
Yeah.
I guess that's a 10-year span, right? I'm a 70s freak myself.
I like the early 80s films.
Yeah, I'll show my age. I'll say the 90s just because I love independent film so much and the rise of that in the 90s.
Oh God, so many good ones.
All of the before sunrise, before sunset, like the Linkletter stuff is just fantastic. And I just love it. So,
but I'm a huge fan of Hitchcock, and the 55 to 65. That encompasses my favorite era of his films, even though I do like the 39 Steps and films from back then as well. And Rear Window is an incredible film.
God, Rear Window is amazing. It's on my list too.
And
that's one that they've tried to remake a few times, and they take the theme of it basically and try to kind of jazz it up a little bit. It's just
the Johnny Depp one was okay.
Yeah, it was okay. But I mean, because the premise is so good that it's going to be okay. But I also would say there's a genre I would love to go back, because we're starting to see a little bit of a revival of it in the United States right now with musicals, with Hamilton, In the Heights, and Spielberg doing West Side Story. But I'd love to go back to like those 1950s Gene Kelly musicals. I just love those. Singing in the Rain and American in Paris and Brigadoon, and like those. I could watch those. I would love
to see a new White Christmas and South Pacific. Like those would be my two that I would just love to see.
Singing in the Rain is actually my favorite film of all time.
What?
Absolutely.
So good.
It's incredible. Great songs. It's as funny as hell, and great acting from all of them, and you've got all sorts of emotion there in the film, and it's also caught. It's great because it's actually a film about the past, because it's about the transition from silent films to talkies. So in a sense, it was a 1950s version of what Tarantino did with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. We're just looking back at a period 30, 40 years before.
Have you got a favourite horse film, Matthew?
Oh, horse film. It's funny. I talked to Marv about this the other day. Let It Ride is a 1989 movie with Richard Dreyfuss,
right?
Which is all about. It's not really about horses as much as about gambling. But he plays this kind of down on his luck character who hits one race and then he just puts all the money on the next race and he wins that, and he keeps putting money. He keeps putting all of his winnings on the next race, the next race, the next race. And he's doing this as like his life was falling apart around him. And it's kind of a 24 hours in the life of type of movie, but it's all set at the racetrack, and it's all kind of the backdrop of it is racing. And I love that. I mean, Secretariat's a fun movie. I mean, it's a Disney movie. It's a perfectly good movie. It gets me to, tear up at the end every time, but Let It Ride is one of those. Yeah, when I was a kid, I loved it. Yeah, but I just Let It Ride.
What about Wild Hearts Can't Be Broken?
I can't say that's one of my tops. I can't.
Oh, it's one of mine. I love that movie.
What about Champion the Wonder Horse?
No one's jumping horses off a diving board anymore.
Everybody loves Ricky.
Have you heard of an English horse? It's not alive now, but called Desert Orchid.
Yes, I have heard of Desert Orchid.
Actually met it.
Oh, really?
There's in a place called Lincolnshire, not far from here. There's a sanctuary for horses where they take in injured horses and they rehabilitate them and look after them, and they have open days and things. And he was actually there, and you could meet him, and he was so sweet. It's like he knew people were there to see him.
Yeah,
He was so patient when people were going up to him, and it was ever so nice.
Yeah. No, that's why I love horse racing. I mean, I joke about the gambling, but I love horse racing because I love horses, and
that's why I love you.
And I
love horse racing, even though you love horses.
I know it's a bizarre seeming contradiction. I've gotten to know a lot. No. I've gotten to know a lot of people in the industry, and for good or for bad, 95% of the people absolutely want what's best for the horses, and it's just unfortunately that 5% that make a lot of headlines and that do abuse, and that's no good. And so you just try to do your best to clean the sport up and do what's right by them.
We actually live near a race course as well.
All right.
Since you love horses so much, I won't mention one of the special features that are on the Criterion DVD or Criterion Blu-ray release of Eyes Without a Face. And I'll just leave it at
that. Okay. Yeah.
G'day. This is Matty C from the Astros Fantasy Football Podcast, way down in Australia. And we love getting to listen to Marv meet new podcasters from all over the world here on the Pods Like Us podcast.
Oh, that just reminded me another iconic thing that people say, leaving a horse's head on someone's bed.
Yeah, right.
Everybody knows what that is, or even knows who it's from.
Yeah.
Made him an offer he can't refuse.
Exactly.
Yeah, made an offer they can't refuse. That's another one. I mean, like all these classic films have a hook to them, like that. That's a line that people will grab onto.
Yeah.
I keep meaning
Louise,
to watch
did you name your
Seabiscuit.
5 movies?
I don't know if I can think of 5, but I like probably 55 now.
We've named about 20.
I like Jaws, Brief Encounter.
Brief Encounter.
Hitchcock films.
Yes.
Life Spirit, which they remade, haven't they, recently?
Go on, I'm trying to remember what your favorite.
Just say Halloween.
Your favorite Hitchcock film is that one with the iconic shot, isn't it?
Vertigo.
That's Louisa's favorite Hitchcock film. Is Vertigo.
I got to see a restoration presentation of that back in, I want to say it was the late 90s. They showed it in some theaters and fell in love with that film. First time I saw that film was in the theater there in the late 90s.
So good.
Yeah.
It is a wonderful film.
And she looked
I got to
incredible in that film as
participate
well.
I did a recreation of the falling scene at Disneyland.
Slow motion and
they had this thing where like you would go in and they would show you how they do special effects or whatever in the movies. So they asked for volunteers and I'm like, me. I'm like 14. So they put me in like an office chair and they have me lean all the way back and they strap me in and they're like, when we tell you go, just start flailing your arms and kicking your legs. So I'm like, okay. So I do it. And then they show it, and it looks like I'm falling off a building, like the guy in Vertigo.
Right.
I was like, that is amazing.
They're my favorite bits from the film Hugo by Martin Scorsese. You know when he looks at the old films and how the films of what's the name of the filmmaker? Can't remember his name. But they go into how his films made, like La Danse de la Lune and films like that, you know, with all those old-fashioned 1918 or late 1800s special effects. And they'd say, so you'd see it, and it was great because you'd see them there doing the acting. And then as the camera panned round, in the real camera, not the one that's used on the pretend film set for the film, the camera would pan round and you'd see that the filming through a fish tank. And you'd think, wow, that's how they did it. And they're the bits that I liked. Do you know what I mean? They're the bits that I liked in the film Hugo. It was incredible how they reenacted how those shots were filmed back then, which shows Scorsese to be a
master
of the knowledge of film.
You were going to touch on classic directors, weren't you?
Yeah, as I say, that could send us into the next topic.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that Scorsese is a modern classic director.
Absolutely.
I agree 100%. Yeah.
Same as Spielberg.
Right. Well, I was just going to say. I mean, we've mentioned how many of his movies in this, all this time we were talking, and his films will definitely transcend time, and a lot of them are, I think, classics in every sense of those films from the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. I think they're all, a lot of them are classics. Capra is I think is a classic. Billy Wilder is a classic. Kubrick, I don't think you can deny that. And then there's a couple modern day ones. I mean, you got to give credit to Tarantino, what he's been able to accomplish over these last since Reservoir Dogs. And I know he's this. My next guys probably wouldn't put on that level, but I think the movies that he makes are amazing, and that's Paul Thomas Anderson. But I don't think you can really consider his films classics. But I just wanted to give him a mention anyways.
Nice.
He's going to get recognized though as being that next great. Because he is. I mean, Licorice Pizza looks to be a great, I can't wait for that to come out. So
Magnolia is a work of genius.
PTA.
Oh, Magnolia. I marvel at Magnolia. Just,
I love Magnolia.
And he got a great performance out of Adam Sandler as well.
listen, that's my favorite. It's the only one I can really watch. I can't watch those early Adam Sandler movies. I really can't.
I can, but
yeah, Amanda's in darkness now.
I know. I'm sorry. It's I know. I was like, how can
it's
I
right
light
in for the
myself
month.
up? I can't.
Yeah.
I had all those same people. I had Capra was on my list, obviously, Kubrick, Hitchcock, Roman Polanski, and then a little more modern, Wes Craven and John Carpenter. I mean, their contribution to horror is the reason we have modern horror. Like, Wes Craven, Last House on the Left, and Nightmare on Elm Street, and then even with the Scream series, and obviously John Carpenter, Halloween, Christine, The Thing. Like, I've talked about this.
Lost Boys is a classic
film. I've talked about this on my show that you don't have, especially without John Carpenter, if you don't have Halloween, you don't have Freddy Krueger, you don't have Jason, you don't have Ghostface. Leatherface, yes, because it came out before, but even then, Leatherface wasn't a household name until John Carpenter made Halloween, and everybody banked off that. So they're a little more modern, but they're relevant.
Hey, this is Jack from Bad Counsel. You want some good counsel? Keep listening to my man Marv, Pods Like Us.
There's a thing, though, touching on that with John Carpenter, and I feel the same with people like Hitchcock. You know how people will say they have a specific style about them, the directors. And I'll think, well, I'm not sure, because in both of their cases, you've got films that are outliers, such as with Hitchcock, you've got the incredible film Rope, which is basically he's filming it exactly as it was on stage.
Right.
He's filming a stage play. It doesn't move anywhere. It stays exactly in that one place, which is different to later films like I mentioned, North by Northwest.
It looks like a play. When
and
you
films
watch
like it does look like a play.
Yeah, it does.
Rear Window is nothing like Frenzy.
Right.
There's so much difference in the films, but people, and the same with John Carpenter. The Thing is nothing like the Elvis film that he made with what is like that film, really, and it's also nothing like Escape from New York. They all have amazing their differences. Do you know what I mean? So they're given a specific, they're told, it's Hitchcockian, or James Carpenter makes this type of film, this person makes this type of film.
And
it's the same with Tarantino, where people will say Tarantino makes, some people will, if they're a bit naive, they'll go, he's made Pulp Fiction, and then every film since then has been the same, but it hasn't.
No,
they're all different, and these directors have a variation to them.
And I don't think you have you don't have a John Carpenter Halloween without Alfred Hitchcock Psycho. I don't think you have Tarantino movies without Martin Scorsese movies. So I think they all build off each other and all feed off each other and then do their own thing. But I mean, John Carpenter himself has said Alfred Hitchcock's his inspiration. And I don't know that Tarantino has said this, but you definitely can feel a Scorsese feel to a lot of his stuff, but then he put his own take on it because Tarantino is just an enigma. So
yeah. But I agree with all the choices that you all have mentioned. I mean, a lot of those were on my list as well. I will add two other names, which is I'll go kind of way back, and then I'll do kind of a more current one, although he's getting older. First is just Orson Welles. I mean, I just
thank you.
The Third Man and all that. I mean, obviously, Citizen Kane, but and just kind of the boy wonder status. And I mean, one of my favorite movies is actually RKO 281, which is a Liev Schreiber movie about the making of Citizen Kane. And I mean, that's how good it is that I enjoy watching the movies about the making of the movie. But the modern person I'll mention is Spike Lee. I think Spike is, you talk about a guy who has, when Spike does that shot, and he's done it in Malcolm X, he did it in Inside Man. He just did it recently in the the movie with Black Klansman, where the camera is kind of stationed to the trolley, and the an actor is kind of moving forward, but everything else is moving back. I mean, it's a shot that you just know that's a Spike. That's a Spike shot, you know, and you talk about diverse, 25th Hour and Inside Man are so different than movies like Malcolm X
Get on the bus.
and Black Klansman, Get on the Bus, Do the Right Thing. I mean, and just the way he makes audiences grapple with really difficult ideas, and he doesn't tie things up into a nice little bow and have a nice little ending that at the end of Do the Right Thing, you're kind of left going, like what's gonna, that's a choice. And I think he's got a lot of I think he gets a lot of credit in my book for that. I think his movies age better with time too. I just think the more time that passes, you look back, you go, God, that was a really good movie. And unfortunately, the Academy hasn't really recognized him. I mean, he got a writing Oscar a couple of years ago, but but much like Scorsese, who also was not recognized for years and years and years for his best work. So, those are just two other names that I would add as guys who I think have made in the past and then are still making classic films.
Do you think there's some classic films that you think people say are classic and you don't think they deserve to be put in
all the time?
I was going to say, Tom, that goes back to your very first point of people don't know what the word means.
Right.
To some extent, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Throw John Hughes in there too, real quick.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah.
If we're going a little more current.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't like to knock people for their choices of what they consider to be classic films, just because, again, Clue. I've loved Clue since before Clue was cool.
Right.
And now it's like, oh, Clue is like this cult classic. No, I loved Clue when everybody else thought it was shit. I just
wish they would phrase it differently and just say, hey, look, here's a film that I think is classic and maybe you should check it out. Just don't say, oh, it's a classic. You know what I mean? Just reword it differently, maybe.
Do you think Knives Out is a bit sort of Clue and Cluedo-y sort of thing?
I think it's a clever take on the whodunit genre, to be honest. I mean, it shows the more creative and better side of the filmmaking of Rian Johnson, to be honest. Where he's got that creative side to him. Where I think when they asked him to do the Star Wars film, I think in a way it's like a lot of independent filmmakers when they're asked to make a big film, they're sucked in by it in a way, and in a sense, I think they're being pulled away from where they should be in a way.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the issues I think we have right now in the United States, at least, with the next Eternals movie is directed by Chloe Zhao, and who just won the Oscar for Best Director for Nomadland. And is Chloe Zhao's talents best used in the MCU and best used in Eternals, or could she have a career making another 30 years worth of Nomadland type of movies? And we go, oh my God, what a career! And so it does seem as if the MCU, the DCU, these kind of comic book are just sucking up these great young directors as soon as they kind of come of age. And you are kind of being robbed a little bit of maybe those second, third, fourth kind of smaller movies that they would make that would be really special.
I agree 100%.
And it's unfortunate, but I love Knives Out. And I think to your point about the Clue, it allowed, Daniel Craig just hammed it up. And you could tell he loved doing that. I mean, after years of playing Bond, I mean, just playing this ridiculous, Southern accent and everything. I mean, he just really went for it. But and they're making a sequel to that, so now that's part of its own universe.
Well, they're making two of them, aren't they?
I guess so. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
But that's an interesting one because coming back to Tarantino, and people keep mentioning the Star Trek thing with Tarantino, and I think that's a misuse of Tarantino in a sense, bringing him into a franchise. If they brought him into something like that.
But if you're giving him like the power to do what he wants to do, and make it his own, then why not? I mean,
Trekkies aren't going to like that.
Well,
a lot of them
but
won't.
he's
those nerds are going to be mad.
but look at what he's done with different genres, like for Kill Bill. I mean, he's done all these other different genres.
Yeah.
You know, I get you. I get what you're saying, Amanda.
Household names.
Yeah.
You know
My favorite Tarantino film is actually Jackie Brown.
Jackie Brown.
Jackie Brown's amazing.
Great.
Yeah.
Jackie Brown's great.
Which is a modern take on a blaxploitation film.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
Those are, yeah.
Django Unchained is probably my favorite.
That is really good. Yeah.
It's hard to watch, but it's really good. And Christoph Waltz is genius.
That might be one of Leo's best performances too. I mean, that's up there for him.
Oh well, that look that he's got is now. It was like,
it's the meme.
You know.
But
boy, did he did he get a great performance out of Don Johnson in that?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then Inglourious Bastards, I think, has some really
So
strong
good.
moments. In that film. So
again, Christoph Waltz just
Yeah.
What is he like? I give tribute to you and your cows for this delicious milk or something. This milk is delicious.
I think Tom's clock stopped. It was that time we started.
Was it?
So good.
I'm looking at Tom's clock. What clock on Tom's?
The clock behind him. It looks like the same time as when we started. 9. It's 8:45 when we started. Is it
You sure it wasn't that time when we started? No, it's 20 minutes.
Y'all been busy.
I'm Agent Scott.
And I'm Cam the Provocateur.
And we're from the Spy Hards Movie Podcast.
That's right. And you are listening to Pods Like Us, the podcast that has a license to thrill.
All right.
Yes,
where else are we going with this? Was there anywhere else we're going? So you've already done. I think we've done all the subjects, haven't we?
I think that was there was 4, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
And then we've managed to go in many different directions while we were talking about the 4.
That is okay.
Yes.
As a quick aside, did you win anything at the weekend, Matthew?
Yeah, I actually won $1,800 at the track. So yeah,
to Arizona. I'll take you to the one out here.
I was just wondering because of how excited you were talking about Friday.
Oh yeah. No, it was it was a good day. It was the couple of my long shots hit early, and so it was fun. That pays for the times I don't do so well. So that it all evens out. And but my philosophy is always, bet small, lose small. So like if you bet a couple bucks, it's not going to be the end of the world. But if you hit really big, hey, that's great. But if you lose, it's not. You're still having a good time. So
okay.
I can't gamble. I can't stand to lose money I could have spent on shoes.
I've got, and that's exactly to your point. I mean, on this wall over here is just all movies. On this wall over here is just all Beatles and Beatles related stuff. I don't want to give money away money to go to these other things.
I'll send you guys a picture of my Stephen King bookshelf and you'll be like,
please
you can't
do, and I'll do the same.
How much money are you having to spend on the new Kiss deluxe set?
$200.
$200. That's nothing against the 1,000.
Not compared to the George Harrison All Things Must Pass box. Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to listening to Tom's latest episode of Two Legs to find out if Paul McCartney's film "Goodbye Regards to Broad Street" is seen as a classic.
Oh no! Listen, no, I'm not the one that's going to be defending that film. Not at all.
What's your latest episode doing, Amanda? What's on there? On what is it? The SIP list.
The SIP list. Yes, we will be doing this weekend our top 5 favorite Halloween moments and Nightmare on Elm Street moments. So from the entire franchise of both films, I'm taking Halloween. My guest is taking Nightmare on Elm Street. So that'll be our. And then that's it for now.
Johnny Depp's got to be up there in one of the top 5 for Nightmare on Elm Street.
For sure.
That sequence.
I've got the Halloween list, but there's no way that one doesn't make the list. So,
are there any films that you would never ever watch under any circumstances, even if somebody paid you to watch them?
The gory films. I'm not a gore fan at all.
Me neither.
So Saw movies are
any Saw movies except the first one.
Yeah. I can't do gore.
Nightmare on Elm Street 2 and Halloween 6. No. will not watch them.
What do you think? What do you think of Dream Warriors?
I love Dream Warriors. I think it's brilliant. I would consider it the best out of the whole franchise, even over the first one.
I think it's a very clever film. It's a really good take.
Right?
Yes. Has anyone ever seen the film with Dennis Quaid, Dreamscape? We're coming out of classic films
yes.
here, but Dreamscape.
Long time ago. Not since the 80s, though.
That's a clever film.
Yeah.
It's almost like Inception before Inception existed.
Oh boy!
Before Inception's Inception.
Yeah.
Before Inception.
Maybe that's how Chris Nolan came up with the idea. I mean, there's a whole rabbit hole we could go down there.
Well done. That's the hook for today's show.
The better half right there doing your thing.
Yep.
You're going to go on more episodes now.
I like supernaturally spooky supernatural films. They're one of my favourite genres in time travel.
Oh, the Others is a cracking film.
Love that. I didn't realise.
I love the Others.
The Others was good.
Yeah.
I didn't work hard.
Why are you giving it away now?
I've seen it.
Hey, listen, if people haven't seen it by now, that's their loss.
Oh, I did.
Yeah, that's an older movie.
Yeah. I did that in the cinema with Sixth Sense the first time I saw it. I'm sat in the middle of the cinema with a friend of mine, and then all of a sudden they're sort of like, it's that scene where they're both sat in the chairs, the mother and him, they're sat next to each other, and I turned around to my friend at the time and I said, bloody hell, that guy's dead.
Yep.
Bruce Willis is dead.
Yes, he is.
And M. Night's been trying to capture lightning in a bottle ever since.
Yeah. Not great. Not great.
Oh, it's the twist.
Yeah. And the thing is, he makes he's so frustrating because I love him because I'm originally from outside of Philadelphia and he's a Philadelphia guy. And so I try to support his movies, and he's such a good filmmaker, and he gets such good performances out of his people, his actors, so many times. And I feel like if he just didn't try to go for the twist, so many of his movies would be so much better. I mean, because they're like really well made for the first 90 minutes. And then it's just like, oh, what are you doing to me these last 20 minutes? So, because he's got talent. I mean, he's an incredibly gifted guy, but it's just,
Signs was I thought was going great. Yeah. Until the end.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, Rain, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mercury Rising is a good film. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So
cool. Excellent.
I think M. Night Shyamalan would be well served to get somebody to help him, possibly to do like script work with him, because he has fantastic ideas. He's almost like a film version of Philip K. Dick, where Philip K. Dick has fantastic ideas of stories, but they're tiny and there's not much actually to the stories.
Someone else too, George Lucas.
Yes, George Lucas. Great ideas for films.
But he needs that extra help.
Yep. But those prequels were awful. Which I know Matthew's brother Nathaniel would probably disagree with me on. I think
we're not even going to talk about that because that just gets me upset. So Nathaniel, you can have him on to talk about those sometime.
Right.
Hey there, this is Bobby with the Rock Guys Podcast, and you are listening to Marv Smooth on the Pods Like Us podcast. Check him out.
As you say, going off on a tangent, didn't you say that cassette tapes were coming back?
Yes, cassette tapes are coming back.
VHS or just cassettes?
Audio.
Music.
Audio tape
Audio
cassettes.
Yeah.
I have a record player that plays cassette tapes and CDs.
Nice.
Excellent.
Nice.
I'm big into vinyl though, but
same here. Yeah.
So is Tom.
All Toms are in plastic by the look
the
of it.
problem is that I was into vinyl before vinyl became cool again. So like I would always go to like half price books or whatever and just get super good deals. Now you go to half price books and everything is freaking expensive.
Yeah, we've got 2 minutes from where we live too. We go in there and they were like, kind come on. I mean, and the spine's all busted up, and, and you got all this ring wear on it, and but vinyl's back, so you got
all these hipsters that went vinyl. And now I'm like,
that's an interesting tangent as well. So, are we all technically physical media people? Matthew, when you buy films and music, do you buy physical media or do you prefer to stream?
It's a good question. I do have a collection of DVDs, and I still have VHSs that I haven't gotten rid of, although I have no VHS player, but I still have them. Nice. But yeah, I think now I just stream mostly. But here's the bizarre thing is I will, and Tom, I don't know if this has ever happened to you or Marv, but I will start watching a movie on cable, like Inside Man is an example. So sometimes Inside Man will be on cable and I'll start watching it. And then I realize I own Inside Man and it's on like right under. I'm like, why don't I just pop it in, not have to deal with the commercials? Like, why am I watching this on cable? So that happens more than I like to admit. So, but I do like, I'm a very tactile person. I do like to kind of feel and touch things and kind of, there's something special about that.
It's
so
like
I
having a
do like
physical
that.
book. I mean, if somebody gave me a Kindle,
I prefer to read a book than to
hopeless.
I like
Yeah. I'm taking the book. I'm a physical media junkie through and through. Since since I started collecting comic books in the early '80s.
Is that because we're older? Do you think?
I would imagine so, but I am slowly starting to appreciate the apps on the TV, and I was just going back and looking at some of the films, like on this Tubi TV. I was just looking at two films that, my dad let me watch that he probably shouldn't have let me watch. And I was revisiting those two films. One was called My Tutor and the other one's called Private Lessons. And these were just like two,
those like Lifetime Skinemax mixture type films?
Pre Skinemax, but they're like the teen sex comedies of like the Fast Times and the Porkies. Those films, that I shouldn't have been watching at 9 and 10 years old. But so I revisited those after not seeing for over like 35 years. So and that's what I appreciate. That so something like that where I'm not going to buy it, but I'll go back and I'll watch it from time to time on a streaming service. But I will buy. I have to have it on physical media.
Have you ever watched a film sort of like a long time ago and then revisited it and wondered why you liked it in the first place and thought, actually, this is a load of rubbish?
You know what? And unfortunately for Amanda, I'm sorry to say this, but about 10 years ago, I rewatched the three Karate Kid films, and I was asking myself, why did I like these movies back then?
Even the first one?
Yeah, even the first one. Yeah, unfortunately.
I'm glad you can't see my face right now.
I know.
It's a good job.
I'm sorry,
darkness.
How can you not like the Karate
Cobra Kai.
Kid?
I love Cobra Kai and what they're doing with it. I
you
really
know
love
what?
it.
You suck.
Yeah.
Stop talking.
That's fine.
I was going to say one of the awful things about streaming is that you can't get a lot of what we call the old classic films from the 50s and the 60s and the 40s on these streamers. And I'm going to mention Matthew's brother's show again, Binge Bros. I sent a message to Joey, who does the Binge Bros Instagram feed, and I said to Joey, I said, one thing that would help with a streamer like Netflix or any of these streamers would be if they could get a deal for classic 40s and 50s films, because then they get that audience in that aren't being actually appreciated elsewhere.
Yeah. No, and I think that's kind of, I don't know, there's a lot of politics behind this, I know, in Hollywood, but like that was also the deal with like, I thought Paramount Plus was going to have this whole like huge library, but now they're not. And I thought that was kind of part of why Apple was trying to buy up, or Amazon was trying to buy up one of the MGM. And like, again, it was like, they'll just have this massive catalog, which I think the question is, do they kind of release them in a slow drip, or do they just put them out there all at once? And I think what they're probably going to end up doing is doing kind of, unfortunately, the former, and just kind of like they'll put out a bunch of like Gene Kelly movies 1 month, and then they'll kind of pull them back, and
they're
then they'll
slowly starting to release them back on Blu-ray again. I've noticed. I just picked up a Place in the Sun, which they just released on Blu-ray. So I'm noticing Paramount starting to. But it's funny you mentioned that because I did hear that they were selling, but I didn't know about the Paramount Plus thing, whether or not they were supposed to have all these films on there or not.
Yeah.
Someone needs to option all the. Someone needs to option all the Universal monster movies. Like, I feel like that would be because I will say the whole genre of the Universal monsters are some of my, like, which we didn't mention, but movies I will watch every time they're on, like all-time favorites. And if I feel like if some streaming service would option all of those together, it could be a flop or it could be lucrative, but I think you could get a new generation of people into that too.
Right. Well, it's up to us really to get the, those youths if you will, to watch these films.
Hey, speaking of classic, My Cousin Vinny. I mean, that's a classic right there. The two youths. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Anyways.
Well, Marv, I have two dogs downstairs that need to get let out, so I need to unfortunately hit the road.
Let's everyone do our sign outs then. So Matthew, tell everyone about the shows that you do and how they can get hold of you.
Yeah, sure thing. So I have two podcasts, From the Swamp to the Swamp and The Win Place Show. The Swamp to the Swamp is about politics in America and abroad. And The Win Place Show is focused on mostly American horse racing. And you can get those by going to amalfimedia.com or by going to the podcast platform of your choice.
Okay. Amanda?
So I have the SIP list, and I am a member of the Nerd House Entertainment Network. So you can go to nerdhouseentertainment.com, or you can find me on all the social medias, the SIP List Pod. And so check it out on all the other places you get your podcast too. So.
And Tom?
Yeah, the two shows. One is Two Legs, a Paul McCartney podcast, which is also a video cast as well. So you can check that out on YouTube at the same name and all the other audio outlets. And the other one is called Talk More Talk, which is a solo Beatles video cast, which not just Paul, but it's also the other three, John, George, and Ringo. And again, that's on YouTube and everywhere else.
Okay.
Why does Ringo always last?
Because he was the last to join.
Yes, but where Queen Elizabeth asked, was he the first one? Didn't she, apparently?
Well, he was the firstborn.
Well, yes,
there you
firstborn.
Go. Yeah.
And I do two podcasts as well. One is P2 Podcast Blues, which is a George Harrison-based podcast. And I also do Pods Like Us, obviously, because you're here now and you know where to find me because you're listening to the show as well. But you can contact us on podslikeus@gmail.com, and I have a website, which is themarvzone.org.
Woo!
All right.
There we go.
This was great fun. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And hope you're
nice
listening
meeting
again.
you guys. Yep.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Grateful.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you,
Okay, take care. Speak
Yeah.
to you again soon.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Matthew, Amanda,
Yeah,
Tom.
absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah,
See you on the
take care,
fantasy board.
Nice meeting you guys. Take
Bye.
care.
Nice meeting you all. Take
Hello and welcome to Pods Like Us. I'm Martin Quibell, known to my friends as Marv, and this time I'm, I don't know how to word this, I'm joined by three people who, I'll be honest here, I've been reading a magazine that they all have been involved in over the years called SFX, and they do a great show called Robbie the Robot's Waiting. And first there is Dave Bradley. Hey Dave, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us, Marv. Appreciate it.
That's okay. And Rich Edwards.
Hello.
Hello, short and sweet. And Tanavi Patel.
Hi.
Hi. It's like I'm listening to the show.
No, thank you for having us on. It's great.
Yeah.
Thank you for your kind words and supporting us. Yeah.